Out of the tree of life, I just picked me a plum. You came along and everything started to hum. Still, it's a real good bet, the best is yet to come.
We are the Org. Our mission is to assimilate Star Trek The Next Generation, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and beer. Lots of beer.
Hello, friends!
Hello?
And welcome to bOrgCast 7.13.
13, you got it?
Yep. Hey, I have to wheel this music out again, sadly. Theodore Bickle, who played Sergei Rozhenko in Family. I wouldn't normally mention an actor who only appeared once in Star Trek Next Generation, but on the basis that actually he was really, really good in it, and you kind of wish he'd been in more episodes. He's worth mentioning, not just for that reason, but also the fact that, of course, he was in Babylon 5 as well.
He's Rabbi Kozlov.
Yeah, and Ledon, the Minbari. Yeah, he died on the 21st of July, aged 91.
Oh, he had a good life.
Yeah,
then.
good old age, that one. Appeared in movies in the 1950s and 60s, including The African Queen. And he appeared in plenty of TV, including Mission Impossible, Knight Rider, Dynasty, Falcon Crest, Fantasy Island, Charlie's Angels. He was born in Vienna, but he was something of a master of accents.
Yes.
So, and he's absolutely adorable in Family, so...
Yes. And in as Rabbi Kozlov
yes.
as well.
So we salute you, sir.
Yes.
Okay, we've had some general feedback. Commander Shepard on Twitter raised questions on how not enforcing the Prime Directive and the Borallans could lead to future problems, in reference to our discussion on Homewood.
Yes, Homeward Bound.
No, I'm not playing that again.
Sorry.
We used that a bit last
No,
time.
I know, sorry, I like the song.
We also heard from Brandy from the Inside Outcast.
Oh, hello, Brandy. And Brandy writes... Once again, dear Orgs, I'm unable to provide feedback on the episodes you're covering this podcast. It's been a busy couple of weeks, but I wanted to touch on a few things said in the last podcast. First of all, Dana Carvey never did an impression of George W. Bush. That was Will Ferrell. Dana Carvey did his father, George H. Bush. George Bush Sr.
There you go. So you're confusing me with all your presidents.
Yeah, why
related to one another.
Oh, don't give
Don't elect Jeb Bush, because I mean that really is going to confuse the living heck out of us. I think 2 Bushes were quite enough.
Yeah.
Not that we've done much better in this country, obviously, but
No, not at the moment.
Moving on.
Sorry. Anyway, she continues. He also did Ross Perot, but you might have to look that one up, as almost no one outside the US would remember him.
We've heard of
Isn't
Ross
he?
Perot.
Isn't he that loony one?
Well, that doesn't narrow it down, but he's the forerunner of the man who's trying to run at the moment, the insane ginger wig.
I thought he was the American equivalent of the Monster Raving Lunar Party.
Well, effectively, except with a lot more money.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we have heard of him.
Yes, we have. Yes, back in the day.
Yeah. And then she says, Penny Johnson-Gerald is indeed on Castle. She plays the New York Police Department Precinct's Captain Victoria Gates, which is why I may accidentally in the future call her Gates instead of Yates. Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Well, similar enough.
Similar name. On Castle, she's rather hard-ass and makes everyone call her Sir instead of Mom. I didn't like her at first, but grew to appreciate the character, and it's interesting seeing the softer side of the actress in DS9.
It's interesting because Castle's on our list of things to try because we'd run out of good things to watch.
Yes.
But we hit Community before we hit that, so
yeah.
We're watching Community through now.
Yes. Chris Sarandon is indeed well known for The Princess Bride, and I'm flabbergasted you still haven't seen that. But before that, I knew he was in the vampire Jerry Dandridge in the original, in other words, good, Fright Night. Yes, he was unremarkable in that DS9 episode, but he's been great in many other things. And he was in the first Child's Play, not as the doll.
Yeah, well...
Oh, Child's Play freaked me. Ugh. Sorry, anyway. He says, I love The Last Starfighter. What else is there to say? It's not a very well-known movie, but I love it enough to own the Blu-ray. More people should watch it. It's a lot of fun.
I caught it on television back when I was living with my parents, but it's not repeated very often, and it's not had a Blu-ray release in this country. I think it has in the States,
but not in this
not
country.
a region...
No. Whatever
number
we are.
2 or whatever we are.
Yeah.
Right, number 2s we are.
I said, well, that's all from me, except for the usual. Love the podcast. Next time I'm hoping to do real feedback, and I'm going to meet Chris Evans at Comic-Con in September. Okay, that isn't a usual thing, but I'm so excited. I can't help shouting it everywhere. Keep calm and trek on, Brandy.
How he feels about it, we don't know. Thank you, Brandy.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's have a look at the trailer for the alternate.
Odo is on a search for his past.
Dr. Mora thinks he may have discovered the origin of my people.
A perilous journey that leads to a startling discovery.
I think I may have found what we're looking for.
Now, an evil life force is loose on the station.
Intruder alert!
Where the hell did it come from?
But is Odo trying to find it
I'll be running the investigation.
or protect it?
What do you think they'll do with you?
On the next episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, it sort of borders on spoilery, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, I mean, it would have spoiled it enough for me if I'd watched it before I watched the episode. Because with just an episode title, I knew nothing.
I know nothing.
And actually, it was a long way in before I remembered. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I'd seen that trailer, I'd have gone, oh, it's that one.
Yeah.
So it's spoiler-ish, I guess. And it could have... So you start with Quark selling pieces of plague.
This is a callback to the Nagus, isn't it?
Yeah.
They're selling off... Well, we thought it was remains of the Nagus, and it turned out not to be, so heaven
Yeah.
knows who they were.
And he appears to be somebody who either invented holodecks or engineered some key component or some sort of entrepreneur anyway. And Odo wants to buy a piece.
And it kind of fools you into thinking this is going to be a Ferengi episode.
It does.
But this is Quark's only scene, I think, in the entire story, so it's kind of curious, really.
Yeah. And Quark's like, you don't want to buy a piece of plague. And Odo's like, no, I'm interested in humanoid death rituals.
What a hobby.
Yeah. So Quark still thinks he's taking the piss, but then Odo holds out in his hand 3 strips of latinum, which is what it costs to buy a piece of plague.
There is one thing I was curious about.
And what's that?
How do I know it's plague?
It says so on the label.
Isn't there some sort of letter of authenticity?
The Ferengi seal of dismemberment is right here. What more do you want?
I want plague.
You got him.
Not if he's still alive.
Still alive?
Still alive.
Plague?
After I tracked him down on Kosla 2, told him about your little scheme, he was quite amused. I'm not.
Odo, I'm a victim here. I bought these discs in good faith. I have 5,000 pieces of plague in my storeroom.
Not plague.
Then who?
Good question.
It's a great scene.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Quark's like, I want an investigation. And Odo's like, I will do an investigation. And it's just about, you think, to kick off along those lines when Dr. Mora Paul appears.
In his awful tartan top.
Oh, it's terrible.
I think he thinks he's on Sub Rosa.
Oh, don't.
Very cute. And it's not even... It's just like half of his top. And not even like the top half, but it's just the one half on one side.
Yeah.
It is very strange. He's also an earringless Bajoran, but that might be because he's a science bod, because his colleague we meet later on with the wonderful porn name, what was it? Weldram. Yeah, he hasn't got an earring either, so perhaps this is a scientist thing. I don't know. It was originally going to be played by René Auberjonois, rather like Brent Spiner played.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Quite. But they scrapped that idea because they realised it was going to take too long to get Auberjonois out of makeup.
And in it again,
Yeah. It made the episode take twice as long to film. So instead, we get the absolutely wonderful James Sloyan. He's Yarok in The Defector.
Is he?
Yes! We only watched that like a few weeks ago because I went back and rewatched it again. It was like, ooh, I love this episode. Yes!
Really?
That was our Yarok. Yes, it doesn't look that different.
Does he not?
No. I mean, the hair's different. Of course, the hair is modelled after Odo's.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Which dates back to... Now, which episode was it? I had a note about this. Blah, blah, blah. The Forsaken. Odo told Loaxana that he'd modelled his hair on the scientist who'd found him. Well, we find out that's very true here. Yes.
Bad hair.
And James Sloyan will also turn up later on in season 7 of Next Gen.
Actually, now that's what I know him from. And I didn't want to mention it in case anybody listening hadn't seen season 7 of Next Gen.
Yeah, we'll hold fire on that one. But
I knew that.
We'll be seeing
just
him
so
soon.
that you don't think I'm a complete idiot, I knew that.
He was also in Buck Rogers.
Really?
Yes. So I now want to rewatch the 2 parts. I want to rewatch that now.
Oh, yeah.
He was in X-Files and Quantum Leap, so he's a good genre actor.
Yeah.
And it's a very welcome return. I love him. He's a great character actor, so that's good stuff.
Yes. So anyway, Morapol has come to see Odo, and he's basically counting on the fact that the exploration of who Odo is and his origins is never far from Odo's mind, which Odo says is true. But, I mean, other than that, Morapol is a complete patronising cunt.
Yes, you can see why Odo doesn't like him.
No.
Yeah.
That's your teaser.
Yeah, which is about... but, you know.
Yeah, it's
Except for the fact that I'm waving the flag going, yeah, it's James Lyon. But that, I suspect most people watching this episode wouldn't be doing that particularly. So
it's intriguing, but actually, at this point, the Ferengi stuff sounds more interesting, and you don't hear any more about that.
Nope, that's the last we hear about Plague and his remains.
So after the teaser, you've got Jake and Cisco, and Jake's trying to skive off of his homework, saying, I'm going to ace the test, and Cisco's like, no, it's not about the test, it's about learning, and it involves Klingon opera.
Yeah.
And then...
I fancy having to do exams on Klingon opera.
You know, and Jake's like, when am I going to use this? And he's like, you might want to be a musician, or get a job where there are Klingons. And you can see him really struggling. And Jake, so when did you last study Klingon opera? And Cisco's, when I was your age. And Jake's like, so I have to go through this through you because you did. And Cisco's, yeah, that's about it. And it's just a really amusing scene.
And nicely acted as well.
Very well acted.
But again, slightly wrong footing you, because this isn't going to feature Jake again for the rest of the story.
Or Klingon opera.
Or indeed Klingon opera, yes.
So Odo appears, and he's come to request a runabout, and Cisco's like, of course, but what do you want it for? And basically there's a Bajoran probe in the Gamma Quadrant has found a planet that seems to have Odo's DNA on it, or something in common with Odo's DNA that might suggest it's his origins. That's all they have to go on for now, but if Dr. Mora went via the provisional government or whatever, it'd take ages, whereas by coming to Odo...
Yeah, you can understand they've got different priorities.
Yeah, coming to Odo and Cisco, it's quicker, but also totally ties in with Starfleet's mission to explore. So, on a runabout, you've got Porno Bajoran.
Dr. Ram.
Well, Ram.
Did somebody call a doctor? I'm Dr. Ram.
How well do you ram? I'm well ram. Sorry. Anyway, so you've got him. You've got...
In his purple top. You know,
it's nice. And you've got Dr. Mora in his hideous outfit. You've got Odo, and you've got Dax, which makes sense. Dax is piloting the runabout, but also Dax is a science officer, and this is basically a science mission. So it's logical that she's there. So they're sort of having a conversation, Dax and Odo and Dr. Mora, except Dr. Mora doesn't let Odo speak. And you get all these sort of Odo raising his eyebrows and going...
So he doesn't have any eyebrows, but yeah.
You know what I mean. If his eyebrows were there, they would move. That bit of his face moves, where his eyebrows would be. You know what I mean.
What you mean is Renee's doing excellent acting under that mask again.
Yes, basically. And Porno Bajoran is initiating scans. They find the planet in the Gamma Quadrant, and there's ruins, and a really fuck-awful bad matte painting that looks like cross-stitch.
Yeah, generally the set looks very good,
Yes.
these ruins, but they've got this really obvious painted background that looks pretty awful.
And when I say looks like cross-stitch, I don't mean cross-stitch looks bad. What I mean is cross-stitch doesn't look real. And the job of a matte painting is to blend seamlessly in, and this looks like cross-stitch in terms of not looking remotely
it does
real.
Stick out like a sore thumb, sadly,
Yeah.
We see this stone obelisk,
Yes.
which we've actually seen the prop of in real life. It came to the British Science Museum some years back.
But, you know, something to make archaeologists everywhere just scream. They beam it away.
Yes! That seems a tad
Nothing about
destructive and
examining it
interfering.
in situ to get a feel for its context.
No.
No, we've got the technology to scan this.
Yeah, take pictures and take
and
pictures
then reproduce it in a holodeck.
Yeah, they take the actual
They
piece
actually beam the fucker away.
You can imagine actually Picard absolutely losing his
he
rag
would-
at this,
he
wouldn't
would.
he?
He would. He'd be spitting.
What?
Yes. And then Indiana Jones styly, automatically that starts off an earthquake, and there's all this rumbling and gas because they've nicked the fucking artifact, of course.
Yeah. It also reminded me a bit of Star Trek 3 when all the gas starts coming out of Genesis when it starts breaking up as well. But they also find some iron filings, which are supposed to be some distant relative of Odo's, possibly, but are blatantly iron filings with a magnet being moved underneath them.
Yeah. They are blatantly iron filings, but I do at least like the idea. They say, well, it might be related to Odo, but actually it's silicon-based and sort of vegetative, so there might be something in common, but you're never thinking this is going to be another Odo. I mean, you wouldn't anyway if it was iron filings, but you know what I mean? At least they're not trying to claim these are iron filings, Odo, this is going to be your cousin. It's more...
Well, having said that, Paul does say, you know, oh, it's son of Odo, but Odo Jr. or something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, after all the gas and that has gone off and they've beamed up to the station, they're in the infirmary. The Bajorans were the worst affected, and they're both at this point quite ill. Dax is at that point unconscious, but expected to make a full recovery. At this stage, Bashir doesn't know whether Bajorans are particularly prone to whatever this gas was, or is it that there's something about trill physiology that means that Dax is more effective at fighting this thing off. But Odo is fine, because the gas affected your respiratory system, and Odo doesn't have one of those, because he's a changeling. The silicate vegetation is in the science lab, and O'Brien is saying that, you know, it keeps expanding and reproducing and metamorphizing. So, you know, it was in a little petri dish, and now it's in this big thing that looks like the stellar cartography globe, and looks like the games from the last time, but just see-through rather than purple.
A bit smaller than that, actually. But...
Well, to me, it looks like the same prop reused. But anyway, what O'Brien says is he's going to leave it in a level 5 force field to contain it overnight. But yeah, it's reproducing and metamorphizing at a really alarming rate.
We also have that scene on the promenade where Sisko is sort of sympathising with Odo because of Paul being affected by the gas, and he mentions his father and, you know, how he was really ill, and it sort of kind of suggests that his father is dead, although we will later find out that's not the case. It doesn't say it outright, but that's kind of the inference of what Sisko's saying.
Yeah, but I mean, this is not Section 31 material, but isn't Sisko's dad not well when we first meet him?
Yes, and I think that's the reason why he's not well. They're kind of covering up for the fact that they kind of suggested he was dead earlier on. I'm going to say, they don't say it outright, so it's not a massive continuity problem, but the inference is kind of there, isn't it?
I don't know, because bearing in mind that at this stage, Dr. Mora, you're not expecting him to die. He's just very ill. The impression I got was just that Sisko's talking about... Most of the time, you kind of expect your parents, as you're growing up, you expect your parents to be able to do anything. The problem is he's
kind of talking about his dad in the past tense. That's the problem. And that's because the excuse being he was ill in the past. But as I say, because he's talking about his dad in the past tense, you kind of think he's dead.
Well,
or at least you would if you didn't already know that he isn't.
I suppose. I don't know. So then you have Sisko in bed with no covers on, but wearing some quite nice blue pyjamas.
Yeah, bluey purple, yeah.
Yeah. And he's alerted by Kira, who says, we need you in the science lab, and prop has broken open, and the silicate life form isn't there anymore. And it's like, has it broken out of its containment field? And Sisko doesn't want to believe it, but, you know, it's like, let's just find out what's going on. They're going to do a level 3 scan, but they might have to do it 2 or 3 times because the metamorphosis that this organism is going through keeps confusing the ship's computers. And then you have this awesome scene where Dax appears, and she shouldn't have done, and it turns out she sneaked out of hospital.
Dr. Bashir gave you permission to be up and about?
Dr. Bashir wouldn't listen to me and hid my clothes so I wouldn't leave. I had to sneak out to my quarters in a hospital gown that wouldn't close in the back.
We missed Jadzia's butt. Aboo! I bet it's got spots on it too.
No, they go down the sides.
Yes, outside the legs, don't they?
Yeah.
Yes, hey-ho.
Yeah. Anyway, it would have been nice to see her butt.
Oh, yes.
I can't blame the actress for not doing the scene, though.
No. Slightly demeaning, possibly, walking around in a surgical gown.
And then you have Dr. Mora wanting to get up. He's in the infirmary and Odo's gone to see him. And he starts saying, you know, I'm the one who knows the most about these life forms. And Odo's like, yeah, except me. And I'm in charge of the investigation. But then suddenly Morpole falls asleep again. But he's managed to impart to Odo, look, this life form might be intelligent. The destruction that you're seeing could be a sign of intelligence. So they're investigating where it's gone, and the chief's in a conduit, because they're not really Jeffries tubes, are they?
No, because it's obviously Cardassian architecture, so they look a lot tighter, actually, than the Federation ones. This would be a really atmospheric scene with him hunting this life form. If it wasn't the fact it's so brightly lit, unfortunately, otherwise it'd have a really good alien vibe to it. But no, it is too brightly lit.
Why would the conduits be that brightly lit? It doesn't make any sense.
None at all. Unless I suppose if you're working in there, you want some light to work by. But in which case, I should have just
that
sections
would be a
lit up.
flashlight or something, wouldn't it? Surely. It's not. It isn't just an overlit scene. To me, that level of light in that conduit isn't logical. It doesn't make sense in universe.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that sort of brings you out of it.
But there's a nice line about asking the commander not to mention it to Keiko if he sees her, because of the risk he's taking.
Yeah, I can hear something, so I'm going in. And basically, he finds there's been a structural breach, and the life form is there, but it's dead.
It's kind of like diarrhea.
It's not nice.
No.
So then you cut to the infirmary, where Bashir is.
This is nicely lit and
this
eerie.
Is nice and dark.
When you see the life form appear behind him, it's like, ooh.
Yeah, and it attacks him. And there's a sort of tentacle thing.
Yeah, it's a hentai attack. Which just made me think of Spearhead from Space and John Pertwee gurning badly with that tentacle from the nest scene. But Bashir does a lot better job.
Yeah. Actually, what it made me think of was a costicle.
Yes, okay.
He grabs a laser scalpel.
Zaps it.
And zaps it.
Quick thinking, Julian, well done.
And it's enough to make it go away. Kind of
thing. And this bit isn't so good when it goes back up into the vent because it's clearly very badly CGI'd. The initial bit's really good because it's all shrouded in darkness, whereas it's a bit too brightly lit when it goes back up and doesn't look very good. They're
now looking at a possible link between the life form and RF energy. Something that O'Brien had mentioned when he was in the overlit conduit. But there seems to be a sort of a heat signature and some sort of link to RF energy, even though they don't know what it is. So they're going to try and use that to try and track this life form. And it's left an organic residue, which they're going to analyse. So Dr. Mora and Dax are working together on analysing the residue. And Kira has been tasked with looking at the security camera footage.
Mm-hmm. And everybody's supposed to be restricted to their quarters, which surely they're no safer there than they are if they're all together, because there will be as many vents in the quarters as there are in the promenade, so it doesn't make any sense. In fact, they're probably safer in larger numbers, aren't they? But anyway.
I think the idea behind it is that the promenade isn't easy to defend. And so one of the first things you want to do is shut down the promenade and restrict people's movements if you might have to defend them. To me, it seems standard protocol for that Starfleet has established for this station. So Dr. Mora suggests comparing the life form as it was first analysed when they first brought it back and the organic residue that has been left behind by this attack. Because although they're not necessarily the same, there could be similarities. And he's also talking at the same time that Dax is waiting for this analysis to work. He's talking about how he didn't think Odo could integrate, and he kept expecting him to come back, and you can see Dax going, yeah, Odo's like, we really rely on him. And you can just sort of see the disbelief in her
mannerisms.
She's got
no time for his shit, basically.
Yeah, and you can see it's in her face. It's not necessarily in her tone of voice or anything else. I mean, she's talking to him, she's all calm, whatever, but you can see it in her reactions and her faces that I can't believe this guy. But yeah, apparently he kept expecting Odo to come back and never did. And then when they say, oh, look, the computer's got the DNA chain of the organic residue that was found in the lab, this is the point where I remembered things, because even before the next scene where he says this, you can tell from his reaction that Dr. Mora recognises the DNA chain, and this is where I remembered most of, not all of, but most of the rest of this episode, because the next scene is Dr. Mora going to see Odo to say that DNA chain is him.
Yeah.
And then he starts saying, are there any unsolved crimes on the books? He basically accuses Odo of committing every crime he hasn't himself found a solution for, doesn't he? It's really quite horrible. There's a very heated exchange, and then he's like, you can't trust these people to find out what's really, really going on. You know, you should come back to the lab with me. And Odo's like, what makes you think I can trust you? And then Dr. Mora's like, well, I gave my life to you and whatever. And Odo just goes totally apeshit. He kind of hulks out, basically.
Well, he melts.
He puts his hands on electric conduit and yeah, it's all a bit.
I think this is really good acting from Renee. I mean, it's
awesome
stuff.
But given that, just by putting his hands on one of them panels, he gets electric through him and goes apeshit. It makes you wonder what the fuck happened to Riker when he sat on one in the next.
No, I think this is about him draining the power. This is why they've got these power drains.
Okay, so the panel wouldn't ordinarily.
No, it wouldn't normally electrocute you. He's just draining the power out of it.
Okay, that's okay. And basically, the gas has affected Odo. So Dr. Mora goes to Ops and says, the life form you're looking for is Odo. Well, except it isn't. The gas has affected him, and it's kind of Odo and kind of not. But it's reacting to him, and he's the common denominator. And Cisco's like, yeah, you might even say he has hostile intent. And Dr. Mora's like, yeah, that had occurred to me. So the solution is to reduce the polarity of the neutron flow. And set a
trap him in force fields, basically.
Yeah, and set a trap with Pol as the bait. So they're all around the promenade, like security teams and stuff. And Cisco says, with phasers on maximum stun, and if that doesn't work, up it to kill. And Kira looks askance at Cisco, like, what are you on? And he's like, he confirms it. I guess because at the end of the day, this life form is dangerous, and if maximum stun doesn't do anything, then actually, if you think about it, the phaser set to kill probably won't kill him. If maximum stun does nothing, the chances of the kill setting, as in which would be killing a humanoid, won't kill this life form. So I don't think Cisco's being unreasonable here, although I can understand Kira's reaction. So they trap him in the force field, and then there are absolutely fucking shockingly terrible effects.
Yeah, it doesn't look great, does it?
That's
I seem to remember it looking better back in the day.
No, it looked bloody awful.
But now it don't look great, no. Early CGI, after all. It lacks any sort of sense of solidity and interaction with the set, because it's blasting at this Odo monster thing. He's pushing against a force field, which is also an effect, obviously. So all in all, it unfortunately it does rather let it down, that blob. And it does remind you a lot of is it Forbidden Planet, where they have the monster of the id?
Oh, I
think
don't
so.
know.
Yeah.
What it reminded me of is when I was at primary school, we used to like writing things in what we call bubble letters and colouring them in. That's what this looks like, a K or maybe an X coloured in yellow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that bad. It's really, really awful. They could have gone for almost any other shape and almost any other...
Well, they've kind of gone for shapeless, which probably isn't a good move either, but there we are.
No, I mean, if it had been angular rather than the bubble letters... Actually, that would have been better. In other words, if they were limited in what they could do by the technology of the time, they could have taken an approach that would have looked better than what we got. Mm-hmm. It's awful.
Rather bizarrely, Pol exclaims, "Dear God, what have I done?"
Yeah.
Sorry? Are you a Bajoran? Surely by the prophets, what have I done would have been a better utterance.
Yeah.
Very odd.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense at all. And because he stands there and he says, "I've done it again. I've made you a prisoner."
Yeah.
And he finally realises what Odo's issue was all along.
Oh, it's a nice, powerful scene. It's just unfortunately rather let down by the effects, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, to be fair, the phrase, "Dear God, what have I done?" because you would expect him to say, "By the prophets, what have I done?"
Yeah, it does stick out like a sore thumb, doesn't it?
Or just... "What have I done?"
Yes.
Just, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It doesn't... In that culture, it makes no sense.
No, Bajorans never refer to gods, do they?
No.
It's always the prophets.
It's always the prophets. It's a bit like, on Babylon 5, you would expect a Minbari to say, "In Valen's name, what have I done?"
Yeah.
And if they said, "Dear God, what have I done?" you'd have the same reaction.
Yeah,
And it's because they've got something else. Mm-hmm. And you would expect them to use that something else in culture.
Yeah.
It sticks out at you. But then, when he's really upset, the force field drops and Gloopy Odo comes out. And then you get the sort of end scene where it's like Dr. Mora helped Bashir remove the gas from his cellular structure. And you get this nice scene with Bashir going, "Yes, so I prescribe rest because doctors can't really go wrong with that. But other than that, I haven't got a clue."
It's not going to make you worse, is it? Let's face it, rest. So.
And then you get Dr. Mora saying he's sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Because Odo's like, "I didn't mean it." It's like, "No, I'm sorry that you had to be that extreme to get your message across." And then he says it would be nice if they could keep in touch and talk about things that matter to them both. Which kind of reminds me of Data continuing to write to Dr. Maddox at the Daystrom Institute.
Yeah.
Except actually this has, I think, more meaning because Dr. Maddox never seems upset. I don't think. he's been defeated in the one what's the name of it? Measure of a Man?
Yeah.
But he doesn't seem remorseful in the same way as Dr. Mora does here.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different kettle of fish, obviously, because, Malex hadn't got any previous with Data, whereas obviously Morapol has a lot of previous, and that's what this is all about, really, isn't it?
But it's because he is apologising and he is sincere, and he sort of gently taps Odo's hand, and then you get a really lovely gesture there where Odo put his hand on top, and it's like, no, if you're sorry, I accept that, you understand. It's like
it's a nice ending.
It's a nice ending. It's like relationship restored, and it can begin again now on a new footing, and I like it. It's not overplayed.
Nope.
It's subtle and nice.
Yep.
And I like it.
So overall, it is let down by its effects in places. But I think it's actually quite a nice, tight tale. I mean, obviously, the first time you watch it, it's rather more effective because it's effectively a whodunit.
Yes.
And once you've remembered who did do it, it loses some of its power. But nevertheless, it's a good tale. It's well acted.
Yeah, very well acted.
So, yeah, not bad. Not bad.
No, I really like it. I think that beyond the effects, which I've already criticised, I think the only other criticism I have of it, really, is that for me, the Ferengi teaser is the equivalent of a next-gen game of poker. It just doesn't have any bearing on what happens anywhere else.
Well, beyond the fact that obviously Pole turns up towards the end, but yes,
but that could have been anything, and Pole turned up towards the end. It would have been nice if there had been some sort of payoff.
It's kind of like the writers went, I've got nowhere to fit Quark into this story. How can I do it? Oh, well, he can be the pre-teaser bit then.
Yeah, but that it does bother me if the bit, the teaser bit doesn't bear any relation to what comes later. Mm-hmm. And most of the time on Deep Space Nine, it's relevant. Mm-hmm. And this is one of the ones where it isn't. And that's beyond the effects, which are they could have done better, but at the same time, they were limited by their time.
Yeah.
Beyond the effects, that's my other bugbear. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's a bad teaser because it's interesting. It's just where's the connect? Where's the relevance?
Cool. Shall we find out what other people think?
Yes, and I will drink beer.
Yes. So, first bit of feedback we've got is from Sampo. Hello, Orgs. Here's some feedback for the alternate. This episode is an improvement to the string of mediocre episodes we've had lately. It's not great, but not bad either. Best thing about it is the dynamic between Odo and Dr. Mora. I just love the subtle transition that comes over Odo when he sees Mora for the first time. He seems to lose all his confidence and starts glancing around nervously. Just like the Odo we saw a few episodes ago in Gul Dukat's office.
Yeah, he's right.
Yeah.
You do see that, yes.
I like almost all the scenes between them. The estranged father dynamic is acted and written very well, and it's interesting to hear about Odo's past. Mm. And even though Mora clearly cares for Odo, near the end of the episode I'm not sure, does he really believe that the rest of the crew wouldn't just lock Odo up if he found out he was the monster? Or did he just want Odo to come home that badly?
I don't know, I think the problem is that Dr. Mora won't be used to Starfleet. In the past, when he was working with Odo, he'd have been working with Cardassians. And Cardassians would have locked him up.
Oh, most definitely, yes.
So I think my interpretation is that that's the viewpoint he's coming from.
Possibly. Speaking of the monster plotline, there is good in it as well. I did not guess that the monster was Odo until it was revealed. I also like how attention was drawn to the columns so much that I automatically assumed it was the cause of the problem.
Yeah, I did as well.
The start was effective enough as well, with the trashed lab and O'Brien crawling through a duct, all very alien, and my brain automatically assumed that the small shape-shifting organism was evolving into something big and nasty. Mm. But then it went a bit downhill. The Bashir scene was a lot less effective, and the ending with trapping Odo in a force field was all a bit too easy, and looked pretty bad as well, CGI-wise.
Yep.
But again, I did like Mora and Odo making peace at the end. It did not seem like a forced happy ending, but quite natural.
Yeah.
So apart from a bit of a disappointing monster plotline, I quite enjoyed the episode. Until next time, Sampo. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We also heard from Doreen.
And she writes, it's funny at the beginning when Quark is trying to sell parts of Plague when he's still alive. The obelisk makes me think of Stargate.
All right.
I've only seen a few episodes of Stargate. So,
yeah. I think it's probably the hieroglyphics on it.
Yes,
maybe.
Probably. She says, I love how proud Dr. Mora appears to be of Odo, how he tells Odo and how Odo responds. It's also nice how he works it out with Dax. He's acting like the father of a socially awkward child who left home and actually managed to succeed against all the odds. I like the line from Dr. Mora that's something like, I think, Odo, you've been placed in the impossible position of having to investigate yourself.
Yes, that is a good line.
Yes. Oh dear, Dr. Mora turns round 5 minutes after the lovely bonding I'm proud of you moment and has to accuse Odo of being the criminal and uses all the old emotional blackmail. They immediately drop back into old habits. Oh, the episode's end on a father-son bonding moment. Sweet, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a sweet ending.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And the mark. The alternate, or why it took me years to warm up to Odo. I never liked Odo as a kid. It took years to warm up to him. This episode may be the reason why it was never clear why I had an issue with it till now in a deeper rewatch when I am older. I have never been able to understand how Odo could be so hard and rude to Dr. Mora. If Odo worked with him, he had to realise that Dr. Mora did the best he could. Actually, I think the problem is that Dr. Mora is clearly very manipulative,
yes.
And that's the reason why Odo's not happy with him. He didn't know what Odo was and would never do anything to harm him deliberately. I think this is one of Odo's selfish moments, which we have found he can get very self-serving, and it's a layer of depth to him. No, I disagree. I think Odo's reacting to the fact that he was treated like a lab specimen. I mean,
it was an abusive relationship, and Dr. Mora is as manipulative as all abusers are.
I mean, there's a level of care Mora has for him, but it's self-interested care. It's about him finding out more about this creature he's discovered, rather than treating Odo as
a person,
exactly.
As a sentient being.
Yeah. This story serves as a vehicle for the troubled father-son relationship of Mora and Odo, which is a recurring theme. It also exhibits a strength of the show, how it depicts parenthood, unconditional love, but complicated by real-life issues and hard choices.
Now, that is true.
Whether Jake, Nog, Molly, Ducat's daughter, or Alexander are involved, or the Cardassian boy in Cardassians. In a later episode, Odo feels parental love, and through that learns to forgive Mora. Here he's acting out his subconscious aversion to him, which is represented in his conscious self. So it really is a psychological story as well as a relationship story. As with many Deep Space Nine episodes, the sci-fi storyline is a pretextual vehicle for an essentially human story, or more precisely, sentient being story, about dealing with the complexities of life. Capturing the Odo monster at the end of the episode seems like a homage to the end of classic Forbidden Planet. I was right, it was Forbidden Planet.
Yep.
And like Forbidden Planet, this is also a story about psychology. It's a thrilling and emotional scene. You'll notice a blatant change in character backstory. There's a dialogue scene here that flat out says that Sisko's father had died years ago. Well, it doesn't say it flat out, but it certainly suggests it. Anyway, yeah. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that brings us on to MP3 feedback. And we've heard from Argyle Smurf.
Hello, Augses, and everybody else. This is Damien the Argyle Smurf, and I once again speak at you, this time regarding The Alternate. As you alluded to last week, I enjoyed this. This is good. I'll clarify that. I enjoyed half of this. I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of a Daddy Issues episode. You know, it was for its part, it was fairly well done. It was certainly well acted, especially by Odo. I'm sorry, I'm not going to try and pronounce his actor's name. He's fantastic, but I can't. I'm just going to embarrass myself and probably offend him. But the other half of the episode, for Murder Mystery, loved it. Fantastic. Really well done, really well realised. And great amount of curveballs thrown in there. Love it. I mean, there's a point at which Dax sort of reappears from the medical bay a bit suspiciously and then takes back into the mission and starts stroking the statue really sort of like sinisterly, and doesn't quite get the audio sting, but gets a visual sting. And you think, oh, she's dodgy, and then she's just not. There's just nothing made of that. The statue moves across the room. Yeah, I moved it. It was in the way. I mean, that's fantastic. It's just lovely little curveballs. You really don't see where this is going, obviously. I mean, you could probably take an educated punt, but it's not signposted like it so often is. So I did enjoy that. But yeah, the other half of it, the Daddy Issues, just annoying. Sorry. I like that Odo, he still has that physical bit. He shrinks 5 inches whenever Moore is around. He acts frustrated very well. And I did enjoy that. Interesting point. When many episodes ago now, Kira asked for a runabout to rescue what's name in the 3-parter. I think it was in the 3-parter. Sisko says, "Why? I'm not giving it you without telling you why. I'm not giving it you without telling you why." Odo asks, and he says, "Of course, why?" That's interesting. But he says, Odo asks for something, he says, "Yeah, you can have it, but why?" And then when Odo is explaining why, he says, because of, the origin of my species, the origin of me, and Sisko gives, like, a really puzzled face. And I don't know why that... I mean, it's probably for an advertising break, but why? Why is he... It doesn't really make sense. I'd have thought the natural reaction, oh, you found out something about you, fantastic, can I come too? That would surely be the natural response, but, Then they proceed to go on just about the most unscientific science mission I've ever seen. Ooh, look at this thing, let's nick it. Ooh, look at this thing, let's nick it. Where's that other doctor gone? Oh, he's wandered off. He's probably been eaten by a grue. It's just completely, for someone who took a punt at studying archaeology once upon a time, it's worrying. A bit later on, the lab is smashed and there's no CCTV, except there is CCTV. It's mentioned as an afterthought. You'd have thought that would have been the very, very first thing. Oh, the lab's been trashed. Let's get the cameras out. Then later on it was revealed that it's not. But it's like, there's sort of 3 minutes of conversation goes around this room before anyone actually says, Odo says to Kira, almost as an afterthought, check CCTV, will you? Another fun little curveball. O'Brien crawling through the corridors. I'm hearing a dungeon master in the back of my head saying, "You are about to be eaten by a grue." It's like, and he isn't in the end. Bashir is later on because he goes into a room and the lights are off. So of course it's bloody dodgy, almost as dodgy as the CG in that scene. But hey, what can you do? When Sisko declares red alert in the medical bay, he's tippy taps to the bridge, and says he wants red alert, and the conversation ends, and nothing visible happens in the medical bay. Now, surely if you've declared red alert, it's a very serious thing. Surely just about everybody on the station needs to know. You don't want to cause a panic. I'll grant you, big siren's probably not the way forward. But everybody on the station surely needs to know that there is a danger, hence red alert. So why in the medical bay is there absolutely no evidence that he's done anything? There's no tone, there's no light, there's nothing. And you've got to assume that that's the case in the promenade, since I'm assuming they stay in red alert and there's no evidence anywhere there. So you've got regular everyday people wandering around the promenade who know no better. I don't like that. That seems wrong. Because I mean, when you're in ops, you can see, the lighting pattern changes because you're in red alert. But why is that not the case everywhere else? That confuses me. It's not quite an air raid siren, but I'd expect there to be something else. Apart from that, I did enjoy it. Running out of time, so I will just throw in one brief mention. I have decided to insert the Kurt Russell Cliché of the Week award. I almost did this last week, but I decided against it. And this week, that goes to Dr. Mora for, "Dear God, what have I done?" That's horrific. I'm sorry, that's deeply offensive. But yeah, daddy issues aside, enjoyed the episode. It was fun. It was a fun little romp. It had a story, which was nice. Beats the other one. Anyway, time's up. I got to go away. So I will speak to you in a fortnight. Thank you for the podcast. Thank you for your hard work towards it. And I'll speak to you soon. Toodle pip.
Cheers, sir.
Bye.
Yeah, the Dear God thing makes even less sense when it's coming from a Bajoran as well.
It just doesn't make sense. Well, I mean, it doesn't make sense from a Bajoran, but if a Bajoran who doesn't wear an earring is a Bajoran who's an agnostic or an atheist, it doesn't make
even
sense.
less sense then as well. Yeah.
Just no. Just wrong.
Kira asked for a runabout to go and get Lee Nallis. We're back in the free part at the beginning of the season, so yeah. I love this. Ooh, look at this thing, let's nick it.
Yeah. In terms of the Kira asking for a runabout versus Odo, I'm not sure whether the difference is it's Odo versus it's Kira.
Well, I think that's probably it, yeah.
Or whether it's time that's the difference. That if Kira now said, "Can I have a runabout?"
Possibly.
Sisko might say, "Of course, why?"
Not that much further down the line, though, is it? So.
Well, I don't know how much time is supposed to have passed.
Not a great deal, I don't think.
Okay, so you think it is the people then that are different?
Yes, I think because I don't think Odo's ever asked for a runabout before, so Sisko's like, okay, that's fine, but why?
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, the stroking the statue by Dax struck me as really odd, and I hadn't connected it with being a curveball, but I suppose it could well be. Yes,
I just thought it was sexual, but then Dax is.
Yeah, she is. And yes, I'm not. I'm glad I'm not the only one who struggles with Renee's name. In fact, from now on, I'm just going to use his first name because it's a lot easier.
Okay. You could do what I used to do, but other people might get upset.
What's that?
I used to call him Aubergine.
Yeah, that seems far more insulting than at least trying to get it right.
Oh.
Let's find out what Purry makes of the alternate.
Hello, Orgs. Purry here. Firstly, apologies for my bunged up and slightly raspiness. Blimmin' pollen, perfect storm of weather and whatnot. Damn nature hates me. But on to the alternate, and I found this quite an interesting episode. I think there's a lot in it. I mean, the title, as you talked about last episode, doesn't really tell you anything about the episode at all. It is almost like they've got kind of a lucky bag of titles, which when they can't think of quite what to call an episode, they just pull out something, and maybe there's a Deep Space Nine random title generator or something, I don't know. But anyway, we get to see Odo's dad. Well, not obviously his actual dad, but the scientist who found him and did the work. A curious thing about Dr. Mora, do you think he's thought of as a Cardassian collaborator? Because his work on Odo must have been done during the occupation. Indeed, we knew that Odo did tricks to impress the Cardassians, so I wonder what Dr. Mora's state is amongst people like Kira. I mean, she's obviously not punching him, so, she must be mellow to him a little. But that was interesting. What I thought was really well done was the way they made up Dr. Mora, the actor, to look like Odo's mask. It was said that Odo based himself on the scientist who was researching him. And I thought it was really good to have them standing next to each other. And they do look similar. It was, obviously the slicked back hair is a big thing. But it was even the sort of basic arrangement of features did look very similar. And I thought that was actually really well done. It did give the impression that they were related. And similarly, Mora sort of, daddying him, or sort of, actually, quite frankly, mother-henning him. When Odo's gruff to people, it's like, and now he was paying you a compliment, and what do you say, Odo? Thank you. And, that sort of thing, it was quite interesting, and everyone wanted to see Odo's baby photos and that sort of thing. It was quite lovely in a way, and it did keep things moving. I think it's partly because you're invested in Odo, you are interested to see where he came from and sort of how he came about. And indeed, you also had a hint of the disapproving father, when are you going to give up all this police work and join the family science business kind of thing. Yes, it's hokey, but I actually think, considering what the Mark called the family tree drama, I think it works quite well in Deep Space Nine in this situation, more so than we've had in Next Gen. We obviously have the driver of the plot, which is there's some weird thing stalking the ship, hurting people. And I did quite like some of the sort of alien-type homages. I mean, when O'Brien's crawling through the conduit, you can virtually hear the pip of the motion sensor from Alien. And I did like his thing of when you hear the sort of horrible noise, I'm going to go and look at that. Please don't tell my wife I do this, because she'll only worry. And I quite like there's a wee sort of bit about that. That was quite fun. And just in general, the plot goes along. I will say when... I remembered the twist that the creature is actually Odo, affected by that weird gas that they found on the planet. They never do say anything about that obelisk that they find. It does just, obviously, maybe it's being looked at by top men, and there's some big warehouse in Starfleet somewhere with that in the Ark of the Covenant. But yeah, you've got, I thought the attack on Bashir, that was a bit ropey. The tentacle kind of looked Doctor Who-ish, and I don't mean that in a new Doctor Who-ish, I do mean that in kind of the 70s and 80s Doctor Who-ish, which in a 1990s TV show isn't really acceptable, but I think they do well with what they can. I've got to remember that Odo's shape-shifting effects at that point were cutting edge. Particularly for TV. I mean, we'd seen that in Terminator 2 in a big budget Hollywood film, but to have it in an actual TV series is quite impressive. And so I think when he was the kind of blob monster, I think that looked... I'm giving it the benefit of the doubt being a 1990s TV show, and I actually thought the sort of haziness of it worked quite well, particularly since he was kind of this odd form. So yeah, overall, it's a bit of a weird episode because it's kind of this family drama combined with a monster hiding, and it's interesting the way that Sisko can completely shut down the station. Actually, that was something we've never seen before. But yes, he can close it up so that everyone's sort of in bunkers. I'm guessing it must be sort of secure spaces. It's just interesting to know where people go when there's a big fight on, and I can't remember if we do see that later. But yes, overall, a very enjoyable episode. Well, I mean, maybe not a classic. It's not one that you're going to go on and on about. But definitely a good enough episode, solid stuff, some good family, some good good performances, some good family stuff, and even a wee bit of tension. So yeah, nothing bad to say about that. Unlike the next episode, where I feel I'm going to have quite a lot of bad things to say. But I will talk to you later about Sub Rosa. But until then, bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, I think everybody's hunkered down in their quarters because that's where they say that people ought to go to.
Yeah.
So that explains that one. The obelisk will return, I think, if I remember rightly. So I won't say anything more about that.
I do like the idea that there's a group of people examining it, or it's been filed away.
It's put in a big warehouse. No.
Yeah. Although you can kind of imagine if there are a group of people who are examining it and Picard gets wind of it, he's just going to go apeshit.
Put it back!
Yeah. I mean, what happened to that planet after all the earthquakes and whatever?
We don't know, do we?
Is it all fucked now?
Yes. And an interesting thing about Morapol's status as a collaborator, I mean, we don't really see he speaks to Kira once, doesn't he? And she doesn't react. She doesn't react by punching him in the face, so he can't be that bad. I mean, I guess, lots of people had to work alongside the Cardassians, but if they weren't involved directly in oppressing their fellow Bajorans, they might have not been, might have got off the hook slightly. I mean, something who's involved in investigating an alien creature probably isn't going to be quite so looked down upon as somebody who was involved in work camps or something like that. So
yeah, but you say that. Sorry, this is going to be a callback to a previous episode, but it came up in a conversation recently, so I want to mention it because it's Trek and Ting. There was a guy.
Oh. How old do you sound?
372. There was a guy who was arrested very recently, and he's going to be tried and imprisoned for Nazi war crimes, and he's 90-something. And he worked in a records office.
Yep.
Like that guy, the character I can't
from
remember.
the first season.
Yes.
Yes. What was he called? Oh, no.
Anyway, the point was that this guy, all he did was keep records.
Correct.
That's it. And you might not think necessarily that he was a collaborator if all he did was keep records. But the point was that the guy said that he ought to...
Maritza.
That's it.
Yes.
Take
Eamon Maritza.
Yes, ought to take responsibility for what his people had done.
Yeah.
Because should he not have spoken out, should he not have done something?
But again...
And this guy who's been arrested for Nazi war criminals has said exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
Should he not?
But I don't know. You see, because clearly, if you're involved in records for a prisoner of war camp, that's more dodgy than if you're involved as a scientist exploring a completely different race. It's not connected with the occupation.
So isn't okay?
It's like if you're working for the post office, say. You were working for the post office before, then you're invaded. You're still working for the post office. You're not quite so tainted, are you, as somebody who's directly been involved in keeping records in a prisoner of war camp?
No, fair enough. I see what you're saying. But it's just interesting that Kira's reaction to Maritza was sympathetic.
Well, more sympathetic, but yeah.
So I don't know. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that whole thing up because the moment somebody told me about this news item, about this Nazi war criminal...
It made you think a duet.
Yes, that's where my brain went. And it was like, yay, Deep Space Nine is awesome. Sorry.
Let's find out what Drew and Tracy thought of this one.
Hello, it's us. Here's our feedback for Star Trek Deep Space Nine episode The Alternate. So Odo's dad comes to see him.
Yep.
And they talk about the person that he's taught Odo to be, like he's kind of, taught him how to be humanised almost. Yeah, mental. Yeah, it's a very good word for it, actually.
Yep.
Because Odo's quite adamant that he's not his dad.
Yep.
So it's like his mentor, isn't it? He's kind of taught him how to be humanised and stuff like that, how to interact. So really, he's like the space equivalent of Geppetto. Because he's kind of taken Odo under his wing, kind of, I'm going to make you a little boy and bring you to life. And that's kind of what he's done to Odo, hasn't he? I think that's quite sweet, actually. What, when, why is there a Klingon opera?
No, we've heard Klingon opera before.
Yeah, but why?
Well, they have opera, don't they? But I do agree. I mean, it's the old classic, when am I ever going to use trigonometry?
Well, exactly. I absolutely agree
with
Jake
with
on
this
one. Yeah.
When are you ever going to use Klingon opera?
And the thing is, as well, if Jake is likely to encounter a Klingon outside of Deep Space Station, right? Klingon's going to want to rip his face off. It ain't going to want to sing him an aria, is it, to be fair? So you don't need Klingon opera. So it did make me laugh when Odo's dad was in the hospital. And I am going to call him his dad.
That made you laugh when his dad was in the hospital, injured?
No, but let me finish my sentence and then it makes sense. Because he had like a dial on his head, didn't he? And I said to you, it looks like an attack wing movement dial.
The movement dial, yes.
Yeah, so that made me laugh. And I was kind of thinking, well, just be sheer kind of like control him by going like moving it like 2 forward and 3 hard right. That would be so hilarious, wouldn't it? So we did start having a conversation in the middle about how can the blob be Odo?
Yes.
And we kind of said, well, let's have a conversation about this on feedback. But then actually, it kind of works its way through because this is Odo's kind of pent up aggression and all his frustrations and everything coming out.
Yep.
But it's only presented to Geppetto, his daddy.
Yes.
So
Mora.
Yeah, so to me it's like, this is what happens when you hold your pent up aggression against your parents, isn't it?
Yes.
You actually turn into a teenage brat. So I guess he's kind of had his teenage rebellion there. What the fuck was the melting Odo about? That was really scary. That was like, face melting. So my God, you could have warned me about that on a sunny Sunday afternoon.
I didn't know it was coming. I liked it when Mole said about reversing the polarity on the energy field. So I was like, is that a Doctor Who callback there? Reversing the polarity on the neutron plane?
This was a little bit Doctor Hulu style.
I think it's a bit like Alien.
Hulu?
Alien Deep Space Nine, wasn't it? When I was going through the ventilation shafts and that.
Oh yeah, it's always the engineer that's on his hands and knees going through the ventilation. I really quite enjoyed this episode. There was a lot of science in it, there was a lot of action in it, there was a lot to think about as we was going through. And I quite enjoyed the end. It was, Odo and his daddy making that, yes, we're going to see more of each other, we're going to build a relationship.
Yeah, that was a nice bit.
But I just felt like they missed a trick. I needed to hear the theme tune to Little House on the Prairie, finish this, and then his dad and Odo kind of walking or running down skipping down the promenade or the boardwalk, with the theme tune going on. That's what I kind of needed to kind of round this episode off. I don't think Deep Space Nine's ever going to have that ending. As a girl, I think I needed that, but overall, I really enjoyed it. It was a good episode.
It's all right. It's all right
for you because you know what's coming, but for me, because the last couple of episodes we've watched have been a load of old shite. I needed this. It had a bit of excitement in it.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, it was better than what we've seen for a while.
Not
so
bad.
I enjoyed it.
Not bad.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Good night, Odo. Good night, Maripole. Little House on the Prairie.
I've never seen it.
My sister was really, really into it, and I only have very vague memories of like the end, which was usually good night, John Boy, good night, Marianne, and lots of people skipping down the hill, including girls with pigtails and gingham dresses. That's like the sum total of my memories of the thing.
Okay. Yeah, less Space Geppetto and more like Space Mr. Miyagi, really. Trying to teach him the moves.
Bright light!
No, that's Gremlins.
What's Mr. Miyagi then?
Karate Kid.
Oh, okay. I got confused there.
Yeah, you did.
It's been too long since I've seen the proper Karate Kid. The kids watched the remake recently with Jaden Pinkett-Smith. But no, it's been too long since I've seen the proper one. Sorry.
And yeah, we get Odo's id monster, really, isn't it, from Forbidden Planet? We will see Melty Odo again, just to warn you. I'll try and remember when it's coming up next to give you some warning, because it's kind of a reoccurring theme later on down the line.
I do love it. What you said about the attack wing dial when they had the thing on Dr. Mora. At the time I was watching it, I'm thinking, what's that remind me of? And that's exactly what it was that it reminded me of. It's like, is he going to go 2 forward? Is he going to do 3 reverse with an auxiliary token? Yeah, it totally was an attack wing dial on the head.
But yes, glad you enjoyed that, and you felt it was a return to form for Deep Space Nine, which I think is certainly true.
Yep.
Sub Rosa then. Oh, God.
Subpar.
It haunts her in her sleep. Beverly. A terrifying presence who wants her soul.
Stop it!
And will kill anyone who stands in his way.
We'll be together. Always.
Now, will his seductive power take possession of Dr. Crusher?
I'm leaving Starfleet.
Or can she escape his deadly clutches?
Come on, Beverly, we've got to get out of here.
Next time on Star Trek: The Next Generation.
So that was the trailer for the masterpiece that is Sub Rosa, a.k.a. 50 Shades of Gran. Yes. Which they made very nicely spooky by having a sort of Nightmare on Elm Street style music.
Yes.
But thankfully not too much greeting ghost sex, so...
Oh.
But anyway, we felt we couldn't talk about this episode. It would be very easy to take the piss out of all the strange Scottishness of it all, but we thought we ought to get an expert on. And so we are joined in an experiment, to see if this works, by Mr. Purry!
Yay! Hello, Purry!
Hello. I've never been called an expert before, but I think you're overselling me somewhat.
Let's face it, you're more an expert on Scotland than ourselves. I mean, I went once when I was a kid.
Snap.
Some people might debate that, but yeah, I do live here at least, and have grown up here despite what some people say about my accent. Apparently, to Scottish people, I don't sound Scottish.
Hey?
Well, some Scottish people. I've been told, when I was at university, someone said, so are you planning on staying in Scotland after you finish uni? And I was like, I don't know, maybe.
Okay.
Have you met an English person? They don't sound like this.
I guess there are Scottish accents and there are Scottish accents, aren't there?
Yeah.
So if it's not quite one that matches your own, then...
And some are thicker than others.
More on that in a minute.
Oh, yes.
So, our episode opens with a funeral on Caldos 2, which I suppose is supposed to be some play on Caledonia, I guess.
Possibly. I just keep calling it Planet Scotland.
Yeah. Where Crusher is giving a eulogy for her grandmother.
One of the things we saw was the deleted scenes, and you're thinking, bloody hell, how bad does something have to be deleted from this episode, right?
Yeah.
One of the deleted scenes, I'm not kidding you, she fucking reads out a recipe for gingerbread as part of the eulogy.
It's just... it's drowned.
Saying that, if it was a good recipe for gingerbread, it might be the best thing in the episode.
Crusher's cookery tips. She references her grandmother being a healer, which was mentioned way back in Season 1 in Arsenal of Freedom. So they're doing well on their callbacks in this season, nothing else. The set, I thought, looked pretty good.
I thought it looked shit. Blatant AstroTurf. Obviously not real architecture. All fake, blatant studio, a la Tom Baker era Doctor Who.
I thought it was far better than anything they did on Doctor Who, well, certainly classic Who, anyway.
I wasn't convinced it was outdoors by any stretch of the imagination, but I actually thought the AstroTurf was obviously AstroTurf, but I thought the sort of side of church they had was quite good.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I like the tree as well, which apparently was a real tree they brought in. So I thought it was okay. Opinions vary on that one. I mean, it is overlit most of the time. I guess that's probably what gives away that it's a studio, but I thought they tried at least. Look, I'm trying to look on the bright side here, okay? The Dr. Troy Picard are looking fairly good in their dress uniforms.
Yeah.
But what do you make of the locals, Perry?
There's a lot of tweed. Yeah. It seems to be mandatory. I actually, when I remember this episode, I remember there being more tartan in it, but they were actually quite relatively subtle in the tartan.
Well, it was all in sort of strange places, wasn't it? So they're wearing it over their shoulder or,
Yes, it seemed to be more touches within sort of a standard grey tweed, which for, say, a wedding, for example, if you look at the sort of formal wear a Scottish person wears at a wedding, it's fairly standard to have, you do get sort of sometimes touches like that. So I actually didn't think that was bad. I thought it went a lot more brigadoon than it did. In my head, but I thought it was actually, it was toned down a lot. Still, you don't see people walking around in Scotland like that on a daily basis.
Okay, cool. Maybe think of thinking back to what we just covered on Deep Space Nine, the alternates, and Maura Pole's costume.
Oh yeah, that had random tartan in it, didn't it?
Curious scheduling coincidence, but there we are. He's a Scots Bajoran, apparently.
Maybe tartan travels well, because the Bajorans saw it and thought, we'll have some of that.
The minister, who isn't himself particularly Scottish, it has to be said, because he's an alien of some sort, he's called Maturin. And rather than wearing tartan, he's wearing a sort of standard Season 7 grey shirt that everybody wears in this season, with a sort of nondescript gown, which isn't a patch on what I get to wear on the Sunday. So. But he also is the governor of the colony, as well as being the minister, apparently.
He probably isn't actually a minister. He's probably officiating at the funeral in his capacity as governor of the colony.
Well, does he run the church as well, which they blatantly have there?
I don't know. I didn't ask him.
I actually had a wee issue with this, because I think Picard does say to him, oh, you're obviously not Scots. And I thought, well, technically, I sort of came up with a reasoning for it later, but I thought initially, well, he could be Scottish. I mean, if his family had, say, the contact with aliens for maybe a couple of hundred, about 300 years now, so it's possible that some aliens moved to Scotland, lived there for over a century, and I'd say born in Scotland, I'm very easygoing like this, but I'm born in Scotland, you're Scottish. Well done. You don't give away much, but that you can get for free. But then I thought it might be because the Scottish accent was a bit duff, and Picard was kind of... You're obviously not Scots. Didn't fool you then, Picard, did I?
Damn it, I was trying my best. He's got your standard makeup appliances, nothing too exciting, although the way his beard and hair is, he does look rather like George Lucas, that's to be said.
He does!
Yes.
You're right. It is George Lucas.
He uses a big chunk of Anglican liturgy, but rather than certain hope of the resurrection to eternal life, we get a sort of humanist that her memory will be kept alive in us all.
Oh, well, they're Episcopalians in Scotland, aren't they? Rather than Anglicans. So
yeah, but...
maybe that's, deviation from the liturgy.
Maybe.
I've not been at enough Church of Scotland funerals to comment, so I wouldn't know. I think the last one I was actually late in, so I missed the eulogy. I didn't pay attention. That's basically the problem. I was at the funeral.
Being late for a funeral? There's a joke there. He's played by Michael Keenan. You're not very likely to recognise him under that makeup.
No.
Any idea, Purry?
No.
Well, he'll appear later on in Deep Space Nine as a character called Patrick.
No, still not ringing bells, but...
No.
He turns out to be, let's put it, a friend of Julian, and we'll leave it at that. We'll come to it later on. About season 5, I think, unfortunately, so much later on, but there we are.
Okay.
Bev spots another non-tartan wearing chap who's got a wistful look on his face. This is Ronin, and he's played by Duncan Rager. Did you recognise this chap?
No.
He looked eerily familiar.
Again, Deep Space Nine. He's going to be a reoccurring character called Shakar.
But not When the Walls Fell.
Oh, yeah. Now I know him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But not with that slightly strange hair, it has to be said.
No.
He was also in V, but it's that's our teaser, basically. This mysterious chap walking past, throwing a rose on the coffin. Wow.
Oh, that's exciting stuff.
Yeah, earth-shattering.
Yeah. Whoop-de-doo.
Then we have Crusher speaking to Troy about the mysterious stranger, standing in front of a grave that clearly reads McFly. That's a Back to the Future reference rather than the prediction of the demise of British pop groups, sadly, but you can but hope.
No, they're McBusted now, aren't they?
I think McBusted.
Yes.
Oh, I wouldn't know. That it sounds just like something you get at McDonald's in a very thick shake form. But there we are.
They are, because I was saying that for ages to my wife, and she thought it was just me pretending to be a doddery old man who doesn't understand modern music. And she was quite surprised, and she came say, McBusted are a thing. And I was like, I know. She said, I thought it was just you being you. I was like...
Nice.
It's fair enough. It's something I do.
Okay.
Troy apparently didn't see the stranger. It suggests he may have been a close friend of her grandma. Picard then is speaking to George Lucas in front of a grave that reads Vader, appropriately enough.
Uh-huh.
He asks the captain if he can spare an engineer to look at their weather control systems that are getting on a bit. We get a good look at that church, which I thought it was quite good. Picard agrees in return for a tour of the colony, which apparently was modelled after Scotland to the extent that the cornerstone of every building was taken from Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen. How was his pronunciation there?
His pronunciation was okay. I actually found it quite quaint because those were, at time of filming, the 3 cities in Scotland.
Huh?
We got some large towns upgraded after the year 2000, and I just pulled it up in a wiki there, and yes, we've got loads now. Dundee, Stirling, Inverness and Perth are all cities now, but initially it was just the 3 cities in Scotland, so I thought that was quite quaint that he'd obviously gone for... They'd actually done the research and thought, we'll go for the 3 major cities.
Only to get caught out by time.
And possibly the Queen. I think she was the one who... Well, not obviously her choice.
Yeah, because Wolverhampton's a city now. That's just wrong.
Yeah, they were kind of handing them out like Smarties, you know.
Yeah!
Well, perhaps it was just Edinburgh, Glasgow and Aberdeen that were willing to give away bricks and have holes in their walls.
Well, I was wondering if they used some sort of futuristic tech to keep and did they do every building, or was it just, the nice ones? Obviously we'll take a corner out of Edinburgh Castle, and but was someone sawing a chunk of concrete out the corner of a Govan Tower block or something?
Yeah. The McDonald's in Aberdeen is now got a big hole in the door.
Well, we've got some quite dramatic buildings in Glasgow, but they're new at the moment, and so, they're maybe made of like pressed steel or that sort of thing. So someone coming in with a bit of metal cutters and cutting a corner out of the Armadillo, or the Clyde Auditorium, if you're going to call it by its real name. But it's sort of things like that. I thought the cornerstone of every building. And it's when they say they tried to make it just like home, I was like, did they do all the bits or just the nice bits? Have they recreated Bells Hill or Airdrie? Or I could go on a list of crap holes in Scotland, but it's...
Yes, I get the general impression they're just nicking the nice bits that you'd normally see on the cover of a box of bread or something.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, it wasn't as shortbread tin as I thought, but it was, that's I'm sure they haven't sort of recreated.
There's no bagpipe music, is there?
No.
Thankfully, they didn't go that far. Already, this is scoring over Samaritan Snare. Let's face it.
Yeah.
Which one's Samaritan?
It's the Twiddly-Dee Irish one.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I thought that was Up the Long Ladder.
Whichever one it was that had the Irish colony that then they mixed in with the clone. Was it clone?
I thought that was
on the Long Ladder, yeah.
Curse you, Star Trek.
And actually, watching this episode, I think that the Scots probably got off easy compared to how the Irish got it in Up the Long Ladder, so...
Yeah, definitely.
All things are relative.
Lucas is on this planet because he fell in love with Scotland following a trip to Glamis Castle as a child.
Where's that, then?
Well, Glamis, I expect.
Where's Glamis,
I have no idea.
Right, that's it. We're getting ourselves a new Scottish expert. You're fired.
I'm just wondering if they made it up.
No, it is a thing, because I remember reading about it as a kid, because it's got loads of ghosts.
Oh, I see, so they imported the ghost with the castle, did they?
No, because he came with the magic lamp, but more of that later.
Oh, right.
Bizarrely, despite having earlier seen Troy leave with Crusher together, then in the background of the scene with Picard, we see Troy talking to various people. Slight continuity problem there. And then we see Troy arrive with Crusher at a Grand's house. All very odd.
Yes. It's a nice house, though. I mean, I don't know whether they filmed in a real house or designed it as a set, but it looks nice. Yeah. I don't know that it's necessarily particularly Scottish, but it looks nice.
Well, I don't know that Scotland has particular architectural...
I wouldn't know, does it?
You could say... I suppose if you go way back, some of the very old, almost croft-style buildings, but they're usually squat, have very thick walls and very thick roofs, generally a lot of things to keep the cold out. That's a main sign of Scottish architecture, is keeping the weather outside as much as possible. It actually looked a bit like a sort of cottage I stayed in just the night before my wedding, so it does have styles like that. That was in Dumfries, so it does obviously have a look of a Scottish house, but I'd say also any sort of house of that period, of sort of late 19th century, I'd say. I'm sure you've got buildings like it in England. I don't think it's entirely unique to Scotland.
Troy picks up a photo of Crusher and her nan, and the former is wearing the old-style uniform, which is a nice touch. They do like to get those out of storage from time to time, don't they, to use them for pictures and things.
Makes use of them.
Yep.
Yep.
We find out Crusher's mum died when she was young, so that's her, Troy and Riker all lost parents at a young age.
Now, there was somebody did a written feedback quite some time ago about how fucked up Starfleet is and how they've all got parent issues. And so I can't remember who it was. I don't know.
It might have been the Mark, I think.
It might have been the Mark. Yeah. But this just adds to that, doesn't it?
Yes, it does rather, yes. So apparently it was her gran who raised her. Troy marks on the lamp that Bev is holding, which turns out to be a family heirloom, which she's going to take with her back to the Enterprise. Troy leaves and Crusher goes to bed with her gran's journal. And then a shifty character in some sort of Scottish hat. Is that a Tam O'Shanter?
Yeah, I'd say I'd call that a Tam O'Shanter.
Enters. This is Ned Quint. And he blows out the lamp and then Crusher goes for him.
A dour Scots stereotype. The Scottish doomsayer.
Yes, you do expect him to say, "We're doomed." He's the actor who plays him, Shay Duffin, is actually Irish.
All right.
I don't know if it came over in his accent or not.
Well, in one of the deleted scenes, he actually says specifically that he's from Kilmarnock. Does he sound like he's from Kilmarnock?
No, I actually live quite near Kilmarnock, and no, you can understand what he's saying, for starters. Sorry, anyone who lives in Kilmarnock. The also during Kilmarnock have already insulted half of down at the end of I've not even gone properly east yet. This is just me still in the southwest.
So we got you on to avoid insulting the Scottish, and what are you doing?
Yeah, but it's okay if I do it.
Yeah, clearly.
Fair enough.
No, he definitely doesn't sound from Kilmarnock. Kilmarnock's a very thick Ayrshire accent, which is bits of it creep into Robert Burns stuff, but the nicer bits creep into Robert Burns. The rest of it lives in Kilmarnock.
Right, and get there under lock and key. Apparently, the lamp has brought nothing but misery and bad luck to Granny Crusher. See, I nearly went into
You
Scotch.
nearly did.
Stop.
It's okay, I give you permission to do a poor Scottish accent. I'm sure I'm going to come out with a couple before the end of it.
Especially since it'll probably end up Welsh or something, knowing me. Anyway. So she boots him out and he tells her that she's doomed.
I did. They were lighting the candle in the middle of the day because it's broad daylight outside.
It was, wasn't it? But it was, I suppose, slightly darkish inside the cottage. But yeah, curious.
Maybe they thought it was vanilla scented or something.
Geordie has found a power fluctuation in the Caledonian weather control system. Data detects the build-up of an unseasonal storm, and George Lucas doesn't want the scheduled caber toss to be a damp squib.
No.
Caber toss.
You do not want a damp caber, do you?
I should be annoyed that they went for something so utterly stereotyped, but even,
yeah.
I mean, you know, over 30, lived in Scotland all my life, and I still snigger at the word caber toss.
Well, you're only human. Crusher is telling Picard she's discovered Granny had a 34-year-old lover, despite being over 100 herself.
Oh, that just totally makes you go to a Darren Diamond place.
I kissed a Gran and I liked it. Tasted of malted Horlicks. I kissed a Gran just to try it. That sexy geriatric.
I really don't want to know how much lube that relationship involved. Anyway, Beverly's been reading Nana's Journal of Erotic Encounters, aka 50 Shades of Gran. Apparently this was with Ronan, but Crusher hadn't heard of him before. Reading the journals, she discovers about him with Granny living a secret life of sauciness. Yeah.
Surely if you found your Gran sex diary, you'd kind of be going, ugh.
Yeah, you wouldn't be reading it, would you?
No.
You'd be burning it.
You know, I know some people, I've got nothing against people being into old person sex and whatnot, but not your Gran. That's...
No. Not the Gran that brought you up.
Yeah.
No, just no.
As Beverly sleeps, the lamp lights itself, and first her sheets, and then her nightie is pulled down. She's got some interesting sheets. I think she must have brought a quilt from her nan's house or something. Cause it's
chintz.
Yeah, it doesn't fit in with the usual Star Trek shiny sheets. And then Beverly wakes up because her name is called out. She tells Troy about her saucy dream, though at this stage it's only a presence that was in bed with her.
Yeah, but she says, oh, he knew just how to touch me. And you're like...
And she's rubbing her knees in a very sort of Vic Green style.
Totally, yes! Really bizarre. And Troy's eyes are like saucers. It's just... Oh...
She says she's envious of Beverly, really, who wonders whether she'll have another dream. The counsellor recommends reading another 2 chapters of 50 Shades of Gran. At least she didn't ask to borrow it herself. That would have just refused it.
They're talking quite loudly in the middle of 10 forward. There are people sitting at other tables kind of going, oh,
put me off my cruises. Crusher beams back to the planet and apologises to Ned in the graveyard, having now found out in the journal how much he meant to her nan. He rebukes her offer of staying in the house as he believes it's haunted. He claims the angry ghost is responsible for the storms as well.
Oh, but when he says, dinner go to that hoose, I mean, it's, I think it's one of the deleted scenes, but the way, it's just, what is it, there's a moose loose about it, it was just, I mean, it was that bad. It's just, just terrible.
I'll no be going to that hoose as long as I dare draw breath, or other such. That was very much going through the Scottish book of Scottish cliches there. He's kind of trying to charge through them all before the end of the episode. What I did wonder, and I think this is kind of one of the things that disarms all of Star Trek, is when he says ghost, why does it just go, that's probably some sort of energy being.
Yeah.
Because it's always an energy being.
Yeah, it is.
The storm is growing in severity, and Geordie suggests setting up a power transfer to the weather system from the Enterprise to help it to cope.
And the graphic is just total
all hands on deck, swirly thing alert!
Isn't it? Just a green swirly thing.
Crusher walks into the house to find it full of roses.
Oh, fucking creepy. If that was me, I'd fucking shut the door and run away and never come back.
Possibly throw a match in, for good measure.
Yeah.
Well, not like she doesn't have anywhere to go. She just has to tippity-tap and, no, I'll sleep in the Enterprise again, thanks.
Rush to Enterprise, my house is full of freaky fucking flowers. Beam me up.
Perhaps that's just the hay fever sufferers in us speaking. I don't know.
No, it's just creepy. It's just wrong. Ugh, no.
Then she hears sounds in the house. Or hoose. Is that how we're pronouncing it now? I don't know. She catches a reflection and sees Ronan standing behind her, which is quite an effective moment.
Yeah, but then you scream and run. Well, you should have run away when you just saw the flowers.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you heard noises, you should... And none of this, I'm going to call the Enterprise. No, don't say, I'm going to call the Enterprise. Just call the Enterprise and beam the fuck out of there, you silly bin. Oh.
He calls out to her again and confirms that it was him that came to her last night, so to speak. We witnessed the extraordinary sight of Beverly being invisibly felt up.
This is gross.
Oh, that's not right. No.
Words fail me. Really. Ronan says he was born in Glasgow back in 1647, but I know enough about Scotland to know that wasn't a Glaswegian accent, was it?
In fairness, I grew up very close to Glasgow, so he might have been from Mulgai, but
right.
I've been told off not to say I'm from Glasgow because we just don't have the thick accent. But no, I thought it would have been funnier if he did have a broad Glasgow accent. If he was kind of "Oh, Bev, I had your gran." That's a terrible Glaswegian accent.
No, that would have made the episode 100%.
I mean, that was one of my wife's points. Was said for a 16th century Glaswegian, he's awfully tall. But I suppose he might have been a rich nobleman. I'm sure, there were rich people kicking about as well, and I'm sure they didn't have quite as bad malnutrition as everyone else. But it was still, I think we are generally taller nowadays than we were back in those days. What with medicine and science and whatnot. So I thought he was almost going to go Highlander. I was born in Glasgow in the 16th century. I'm immortal and I cannot die.
Yes. This is definitely one of the later Highlander sequels, isn't it? Of the original. At least we've got no Queen here, anyway.
What do you mean, no Queen?
Yeah.
Oh no, not outnumbered on the Queen
front. You are outnumbered on the Queen front.
Yeah.
Boo.
Queen are awesome.
No. And Ronan, is that a common name in Glasgow? Because it's got Japanese.
Well, when Boyzone were big, it kind of flourished.
They weren't big in 1647. I can't help it.
I think so. No. It's one of those ones like for a brief period there were a whole load of Kylies in Glasgow and Kylie, your tea's ready. You get it everywhere, I suppose, when names become fashionable because someone famous has them. But no, it's not one that I know of as a traditional Glaswegian name. I know Logans and whatnot kicking about at the moment.
Yeah, because I thought Ronin, isn't that a Japanese lone warrior or something?
That's right. It's a samurai that hasn't got a master.
I thought it could be Ronin with an A, Ronan, which is an Irish name, I believe. I only know that from Boyzone again, so it's entirely possible that it's not. But that's
the writer thought he'd plucked the name out of his head, but it does turn out to be a Japanese word, so it didn't quite work. But never mind. Then we see Crusher telling Troy she's not going to Mockborough classes as she's too exhausted.
Ew, and she's wearing a horrible, silky, pink nightie.
We've seen this before, yeah.
Yes, but it's pink and it's horrible and it's rose pink and floaty and manky and my mum used to have one and fuck off.
But what does Troy think? Because she's been telling Troy earlier, I've been reading Granny's erotic diaries and getting very aroused by it, and he says, I'm too tired for Mockborough classes. I was trying thinking, what, have you just been all this time in your room on your own?
Oh. Yeah, she should just confiscate the rampant rabbit.
Well, the council makes the mistake of asking more questions, and in the end, Crusher admits that she's dating her grand's toy boy.
Oh, that's not right. No.
Troy's drawer drops back down to deck 20.
Yeah, it's like, it's bad enough that sometimes you say, I don't know where that's been. But she does very much know where that's been because she's read the fucking diaries. Ooh.
Troy manages to recover a bit and is able to be slightly open-minded about it. Although she does ask Beverly to consider the fact that both she and Ronan are recovering from a loss and their shared grief may have created an illusionary sense of closeness. Meanwhile, the Scottish mists have invaded the ship's bridge, which is quite a good look, actually.
Yeah.
Thanks to atmospheric control malfunctioning, and Data can't terminate the power transfer from the Chaldean weather control. Geordie and Data find Ned dismantling some of the weather control systems, and he gets the green shock of death for his troubles.
In fairness, that's not spooky. He was pulling chunks out of very complex machinery. I mean, I'm sure if I knelt down and started dragging chunks of computer out or, digging into the fuse box, I'm sure I'd probably get an electric shock or something.
He's not the sharpest tool in the box, as you can see him outside, but there we are.
Although I did like something. I noticed they said it was a very old colony and it was one of the first terraforming thingies. All the panels on the weather control system were all in the sort of Star Trek V Elcar style, which I quite like. It was sort of blue and green. I think you saw it last in the Genolan.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite a nice touch.
Yeah, no, it's cool, that.
Is this the bit where you see that Data's makeup doesn't go far enough?
Yes, basically when they're sort of kneeling down by Ned's body, Data's sleeve rocks up and you can see where the makeup stops. They haven't done it quite high enough up, but never mind. Beverly finds out that Ned wasn't killed by the plasma discharge, but by whatever is causing the weather malfunctions. She name-checks Dr. Solar, as they beam the body to the Enterprise for further analysis. She goes to the house to speak to Ronan about Ned. He appears in the flesh and asks her to help him by lighting the candle, and thus keeping his strength up, so to speak.
Is there Viagra in the candle?
They need his wick seen to. Then he'll travel up the power transfer beam to the ship. They snog and he disappears. Crusher lights the candle and does the strange knee-sit thing again on her bed on the Enterprise. Ronan appears behind her and offers to become one with her, promising her love as she's never felt it before. Ooh. Yes. He turns into green vapour and gives her the feels again.
Oh, this is just so creepy. It's just... Oh, I don't want to see this.
I mean, all credit to Kate McFadden for throwing herself into the part, but I rather wish she hadn't, really.
It does make it somewhat more awkward, just...
Yeah.
Picard arrives at the transporter room in disbelief at the fact that his doctor is leaving the ship to become a healer.
And has bought tweed.
Yes. She demands to be let go and beams off. Troy brings Picard up to date with Ronan, but they recognise they can't do anything about her leaving, if that's what she wants to do. Data, meanwhile, has located the energy signature that killed Ned in the cemetery. Bam, bam, bam. Beaming down, Geordi and Data isolate the signal to Granny Crusher's grave. Then we have more green ghost sex. But Picard interrupts super fun time, which is very, very awkward.
Yes.
Lock your door, Beverly.
Yes, if you're going to do that, lock the door. Or at least rely on people not to be impolite enough to knock and then just let yourself in anyway.
But they're used to not having any locks on the holodeck. It's probably perfectly normal to walk in on someone like this and then just go, right. Oh, sorry, you didn't mind, did you?
Crusher accuses him of jealousy. He points out that she's changed her eyes to green, which follows in her Gran's footsteps. She tries to push him out, but then Ronan appears to ask him to leave. Then Data hails to say they've found the grave and are asking for permission for an exhumation. Ronan says they can't do that. Then Picard accuses him of not being a resident and claims there'll be no record of him being there. Ronan disappears. Then the captain receives the green shock of death. Well, this time it isn't quite enough to kill him. Ronan tries to get Bev to stop the exhumation, but she insists on treating the captain. Then Ronan goes to stop them himself, but Picard isn't dead and tells her to go after her ghostly boyfriend. There's a nice and tidy exhumation of the coffin, made possible by the transporters, so no digging up involved here, at least.
Why did they beam it to the grave? Why didn't they beam it to the Enterprise with its science labs and whatnot? Because technically, the way they described it, did they beam it up to the ship and then back down? Because it just seems like an awful roundabout way of doing it when they could have just all been on the ship, indoors.
Yeah, bizarre. Particularly since in the alternate we had that entire pillar being beamed aboard the runabout. As the lid of the coffin is removed, we find that Granny Crusher died with a smile on her face.
Oh.
Ew. The energy is in her body, despite dying of natural causes. Then she awakes, which is kind of a spooky moment when her eyes open, or that you're expecting it to happen. It has to be said. And she zaps the Enterprise officers. Crusher screams out. Ronan speaks through Granny, and Beverly orders him to leave her alone. She's realised he's an anaphasic life form, which you're quite right, Purry. She should click that from day one, shouldn't she?
Yeah.
Really, Ronan should have come in first time he appeared and found Data and a science team waiting for him with tricorders.
Yeah.
It would have obviously been a shorter episode, mercifully so.
He's been using the Crusher women as hosts. She's not happy, understandably. But he claims he loved them all, and they loved him rather too much, I should think.
That's worse. He said her great-gran, her great-great, that's... It's not getting any less creepy.
No.
Not at all. He threatens Geordi with being shocked to death unless she puts the lamp down. She does so, but then in true Beverly Crusher style, phases the hell out of it.
they said it was she said it was a plasma the candle was plasma or something, doesn't she? Because I thought,
yeah,
how hot's that? A candle you can kind of put your hand through the flame if you're.
She does at one point. She puts her hand in the flame, doesn't she? That can't be plasma. She would just have manky melted hands.
Yeah. That would again have been a clue that something was up. When the candle's burning at several thousand degrees, So.
Burning its way through the table, way to knots, yeah. Anyway, he realises that the only place he can go is into her. So now she shoots him to death. And then we finish with Crusher confessing to Troy that she's a little sad that she had to shoot the ghost, as Ronan made her gran very happy.
Yeah.
Really? That's our happy ending?
Oh, gross.
So, Mr. Purry, what did you make of this?
I also thought it'd be angry at the Scottish bits. At least they weren't as bad. We still had.
Yeah.
There was one. I mean, there were things that random things that bug you, and it's always a sign that you're not enjoying the episode when you start picking up. When all the weather controls are going wonky and the Enterprise is filling up with fog, the governor bloke says, "I didn't move to Scotland for the realistic weather." And I was like, why did you move to Planet Scotland? Surely, if you really wanted to be realistic, your weather control system should have Dreich as a setting, overcast and drizzly, as is our sort of standard weather. But we made Scotland, but we decided to make it sunny because you can change things when you move to a different planet. But I was kind of, man up. If it was proper Scotland, you'd have, when they said 10 forwards dropping below zero, and I was like, and it's probably now full of about 50, 60 Glaswegians in t-shirts saying, you call this cold? But no, I mean, it was trying a ghost story. I give them credit for trying a ghost story, but I mean, as I said earlier, ghost stories in Trek don't work because it's not a ghost. It's never going to be a ghost. So I think it's a weakness in Trek to an extent. Other series could do it's a ghost, or it could be a ghost, or it's something strange. Babylon 5, for example, would probably have
Day of the Dead.
A more sort of they'd leave it more ambiguous. But Trek, it would be it's going to turn out to be an energy being or someone mucking about with hall projectors or something. But it's not a ghost. And I think that kind of they've tried for the spooky beach, the reflections and the house being full of flowers and that sort of thing, but I just don't.
That was creepy.
And I don't think we're helped by Granny's sex diaries.
No, it's not the right type of creepy, is it?
No. We're going to do a creepy episode. Okay. It's like, right.
How low can we go?
This wasn't the creepy we were looking for, but clearly at this point in Series 7 no one cares anymore, so on we go then.
Oh, I need more beer.
I mean, I do pity you that unfortunately... did your wife catch any of the ghost sex bits?
I can't actually. I'm not sure if she was really paying attention. She was looking at her phone quite a lot, so she might have just been.
She could have been really too uncomfortable to look at the screen.
Whether she was kind of staring fixedly at Facebook, because sometimes she'll watch what I'm watching and kind of pass adverse comment, but sometimes I think that might be more where she was just, no, I'm not even giving this a time of day. This is being tuned out. She just shouted to me it was shit.
Yeah, right.
Yep. She doesn't like Star Trek anyway, so she's predisposed not to like it, but there was nothing in this one to... I wouldn't show this to someone as watch Star Trek, it's really good, here's Sub Rosa.
No, I wouldn't show this to anyone unless I hated them and wanted them to suffer pain.
Yeah, this isn't your entry-level Star Trek episode, is it?
No, it's not your entry-level anything apart from granny fucking.
It's one where you're secretly hoping there's a fault with your DVD or your Blu-ray and... as it won't. Well, it's skipping just after this teaser. What a shame. I should probably. Oh well.
It is a very uncomfortable watch, isn't it?
Oh, I feel soiled. Horrible.
Well, Jerry Taylor said Rick and Michael were very distrustful of this story. For good reason.
Yes.
They considered it a romance novel in space and felt the possibility for embarrassment was monumental. They were wrong!
I've said a lot of things about Rick Berman in the past, and not all of them complimentary, but on this one he's bang on.
Oh, yes.
Although I suppose with that, Ronan did have a bit of the look of the sort of guy from the Mills and Boon cover. You could see him in the cover of a Mills and Boon novel with his man boob showing. My mum read a lot of Mills and Boon. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, Jerry Taylor said, I just knew this would work. It's a different kind of story for Star Trek to tell. Well, again, not wrong, but it's a romance, but we do have women in our audience, and women do traditionally respond to romantic stories.
I don't fucking respond to that in any way, shape, or form, you bitch.
Other than revulsion.
No.
Even someone who did respond to romantic stories, I don't think would like this. I think they'd find it weird and creepy. And
yes!
Renia Chavera said, Just having Beverly basically writhing around having an orgasm at 6 o'clock on family TV was great.
No! No, it wasn't. It was horrible and uncomfortable and sick and wrong.
Have they got the right meaning of the word great? Have they got a different one? Is this a regional thing?
I don't know.
Oh. Normally, around about now, on my third pint, I'd want munchies, but I feel too sick to eat anything. I'm just going to drink more beer.
Try and forget.
It's made me tempted to break out beer just so. Don't normally drink on work nights, but this was very nearly a.
Oh, you watched it sober?
I watched it sober, yes.
You poor man. Have beer now as recommended.
I'd even looked out at a particularly Scottish-sounding beer, one by a local brewery, well, not local, a Stirling brewery called Frach, which is apparently made with heather. But
oh yeah, I've tried some heathery beers by Innocent Gun.
It's not one of theirs. It's another group called Williams Brothers, who do quite a lot of this. But it's worth trying. It's a nice beer. But we're digressing. It's
slightly,
probably because we don't want to
talk about this
a bit more. I mean,
let's move away quickly.
This is the one time where if they'd come in and said, over 60s carpet bowls is, sadly, we're not going to have Star Trek on this week, and it was Sub Rosa, I'd be genuinely happy.
Yeah.
Like, you usually got on BBC Two.
Well, we've done it. Yep. It's behind us. Yep. Just a question now, finding out what everybody else saw. But thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Purry.
Thank you for having me on the podcast. It's been great fun. It's I would say a bit strange hearing and actually interacting and having things said back. It's sort of a bit different to what I do when I'm listening to it walking the dog or in the car. It's been very good. Thank you for inviting me on.
It's been a pleasure to have you.
I look forward to hearing the finished product.
Cool. Excellent.
So, by the wonders of Skype technology, we've heard what Purry thought of this episode, but let's find out what other people thought. We'll start with Fatbone Smith.
He writes, "Hello everyone. A little while ago my laptop charger stopped working. Stay with me. And in the time I was waiting for a replacement, I discovered that in the higher Freeview channels there are a couple of channels, 64 and 70, that show the next generation. And one of them was showing season 7. So I thought, oh good, I can feedback on some of these episodes now. Better late than the other thing and all. So I sit down ready to take some notes, and what's the first episode I get to see in its entirety? Sub Rosa. Yay. An episode that ought to have the tagline, "No Scottish people were involved in the production of this hour of television. In fact, we actively kept them away for fear that Scottish people actually sounding like Scottish people might lend this episode a molecule of credibility." I watched this episode with the script open in front of me, which is always a useful exercise.
Really?
And something in there caught my eye as being a helpful prism through which to view these 42 minutes. No, not Nana Howard's gingerbread recipe. But a bit of business during the scene in which Beverly lights the candle in her quarters, which reads, "She sits down on the bed and looks around the room expectantly. She's obviously on edge, nervous, doesn't know what to do with her hand.
No!
After a beat, she gets up, walks around the room, keeps glancing at the candle. Beverly is like a drug addict in search of her next fix."
Oh, my life. Oh, just imagine what Gates McFadden thought when she received that script in the post.
And Fatbone says, "If you think of Ronin's influence over Crusher as an addiction, then it kind of, sort of, works.
It's still not right.
No. She's innocent of the dangers to start with, is then exposed to Ronin gradually, with ever increasing doses, to the point that she needs Ronin desperately and sets about rearranging things to put him at the centre of her life. Then when it hits her how bad things have got, affecting not just her but others, Ronin's attack on Picard, she has a moment of clarity and resolves to kick the habit. Crusher's sexual ecstasies become the highs of the drug. They become her prison and her reward. In this light, Crusher's final lines in the episode, "Whatever else he may have done, he made her very happy," take on extra resonance. Though she's kicked the habit, she remembers how good it felt when she got her fix, and perhaps reveals a rueful longing for all the fixes she'll never have. That Ronin himself is actually the drug rather than the supplier of it is, I suppose, an interesting sci-fi variation on the concept, for which I shall award the episode some credit. I'm in two minds on Gates McFadden's performance. On the one hand, it crashes headlong in theatricality and melodrama on a few occasions. But on the other hand, at least she's getting to do something, which all too often isn't the case. And you can't accuse her of not giving it loldy. It's what she's having to do that's letting her down, I think, not her actual doing of it, if that makes sense. So that's Sub Rosa. To conclude, I shall return to my opening word on the episode. Yay.
Wow. Well, hopefully the only way's up from here. One hopes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for braving that for us, sir.
Thank you. Clearly you watched the deleted scenes as well with the gingerbread. Oh, that was just fucking awful. I mean, the whole episode is, but...
Well, he had the script, so it would have had everything
Oh,
in.
yeah.
What did Doreen think, who's another Scottish listener, so we shall see what she made of this. Okay, I'm not as traumatised by this as I thought I might be. In my opinion, the accents weren't too bad. Obviously, the episode wasn't great.
No.
But in my opinion, as a born and bred Scot, I've not been offended by this much at all. I was cross-stitching whilst watching this, so my eyes weren't overly insulted by the bad acting. Yeah, keep your eyes on the stitching.
Yeah.
One thing I could have done without was my brain making a connection between the candle the Howard women have kept continually burning and the altar candle that is kept burning in my church. Yeah, no.
You didn't need that connection. No.
I refuse to believe that Beverly's eye colour had changed one iota when Picard was going on about it at the end. It had, but I couldn't tell on DVD. You could only tell on the Blu-ray.
Yeah.
And it's a very dark green as well, for that matter. So, Well, yeah, rather echoing Purry there, that it wasn't the Scottishness of it
that's
that
offensive.
irks.
No, it's the granny fucking that's offensive.
Yes. So delicately put, my dear, as ever.
Look, if you want delicate,
Yeah,
you
I don't
need to
turn
do
to
the
you.
podcast with somebody else.
So we also heard from the Mark.
And the Mark writes, Sub Rosa or 50 Shades of Granny's Sexy Time Diary. Or Red Starship's Diaries. Poor Gates McFadden. Poor Gates McFadden. I remembered this being shit. I did not recall it being so shit. It breaks into out-and-out comedy. This is the perfect bit of bad TV for getting a friend round and taking the piss. No, I wouldn't want to traumatise my friend. So, Beverly attends her maternal grandmother's funeral on a colony modelled after Scotland, where she finds herself drawn uncontrollably into a bizarre and unexpected tryst with a ghost. Okay, not really a ghost because this is Star Trek. It's an anaphasic life form, blah, blah, blah. But for all intents and purposes, yes, a fucking ghost. We ultimately learn he's been seducing the minds and cohabiting the bodies of the women in Beverly's family for generations upon generations. After Season 7's endless parody of family tree theatre, this episode takes the cake, then blows it up. Sub Rosa is an episode so insanely, deliriously, hilariously, notoriously, transcendently bad, it manages to elevate its awfulness to a sort of epic grandeur. And truth be told, I enjoyed watching Sub Rosa for all the wrong reasons. But that's because I like to laugh at overcooked and overacted camp. The old adage, so bad it's good, was coined for just this sort of affair. I can't bring myself to hate Sub Rosa simply because it's way too goofy to be worthy of hatred. The best bits. No cliché goes unused as the writers and producers channel haunted house ideas that have clearly been simmering for years. Green lightning, thunder, wind, faces in mirrors that aren't there when you turn round. Beverly getting possessed with a capital P. Fish wire undressing. Beverly reading and getting turned on by her grandmother's sexy time diary.
You've got to admit that's not your usual fare, thankfully.
No. Having Troy be jealous. Seriously, the erotic adventures of her 100-year-old grandmother. I mean, I guess I'm not as enlightened as these 24th century people, but I'm pretty sure my response would be an okay to close the book really, really quickly and not start sticking my hands down my pants. Beverly's 10-forward discussion with Troy about her supernatural paramour has a tone that pretty much translates to OMG, he gets me so hot. Beverly resigns her Starfleet commission to go on live on the planet full-time with Ronin because erotic supernatural adventures just scramble women's minds. Now, you could argue that supernatural forces were at work on Beverly, but are they really trying to claim that it was about nothing more than the equivalent of mind-shattering orgasms? Now, we know from the game that Beverly really rather likes mind-shattering orgasms.
So say we all.
What is it about her and family? She tries to get Wesley involved in the game, and now she's shagging her grandmother's lover.
Yeah, we just got to be glad that Wesley wasn't in this episode. Oh no!
Picard walks in on Beverly when she's very close to having an orgasm with a ghost. Awkward. Again, same thing with Wesley in the game. Gaze McFadden turns in a brave performance while drowning.
Brave. That's the word.
Yeah, brave. Yeah. While drowning in oceans of dreck. An overheated, hysterical, and yes, quite awful performance, but brave. I also find it wildly entertaining that the show mostly ignores any and all sex for 6.5 seasons and then suddenly has a show with ghost orgasms.
Yeah, there's this in the game, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, when they do go to a sexy place, it's never nice watching it.
No. There's probably a review to be stated arguing how horrifyingly offensive this story is if it actually took its situation seriously. Is Ronan a multiple racist? This episode is misogynistic? Or to be bothered by the fact Scottish Ghost has a Japanese name and so on? Figure everyone else is going to do that. I also choose to interpret the last scene in which Beverly tells Deanna, maybe it's too bad that I killed him rather than to go to live with him and have ghost orgasms because my grandmother was very happy, and Troy just stares at her, as being followed immediately by Troy saying, Beverly, I was thinking, perhaps you should come see me for some therapy. Every day. For the next several years. Did I mention that Beverly had sex with a ghost that fucked her granny?
You didn't have to. Oh, dear.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it in a so bad it's good. The only way it can be enjoyed, to be fair, but I'm glad you were able to go to a so bad it's good place with this.
Yeah, I was just too uncomfortable to enjoy it, I'm afraid.
I was nauseous.
Now, we have some feedback from Michael Sims.
Oh, cool.
Of the Edge of Forever podcast. And his email, he says, my pain is attached. So let us share the pain.
Hey guys, this is Mike from the Edge of Forever. And I decided that you shouldn't have to suffer alone. So, oh God, I watched Sub Rosa. And I guess I'll lead with a positive, if that's possible. And I'll say that the core idea of this one is actually kind of interesting. That there is this family heirloom that Beverly has just come into possession of that is going to possess her sexually. That's really kind of creepy, but there's a really cool story idea in that, in sort of a ghosty, science fiction-y romance novel kind of way. What kills the story, though, kills the premise, is the directing, honestly. I normally think Jonathan Frakes is an okay, serviceable Star Trek director. But here, I don't know what was going on. It's we'd go from the Enterprise down to Planet Scotland, and it was just jarring. The two different styles, the different settings, the lighting, the mood, the camera work, everything. It's like Frakes didn't know what to do with this script. Where normally his are set on the ship or the ship. Here he is off the ship, and he it really just seemed like he had no clue how to handle anything. And that's a shame, because again, I think at the core there is something of merit here. But worse than Frakes directing, it seems like no one cares. Captain Picard, he's just moving from scene to scene. I say Captain Picard, Patrick Stewart, pardon me. He's just moving from scene to scene, just delivering his lines. I mean, he's on the floor, half dead in Beverly's grandma's house, And she's deciding, should I go to the grave and figure out whatever's going on, or should I stay here and treat my, I guess at the time, technically former captain? And he's supposed to be dead or half dead, and he just flat out says, oh yeah, go ahead, I'll be okay. There's no grogginess to him. There's nothing. There's none of the normal excellency. It's not the word I wanted, but it's the word I'll use. In the acting of Patrick Stewart here. Even, Deanna looks bored. And I actually mean the character, not even the actress in this case. I do mean the character looks bored in the way she's, telling Beverly, don't do this, or here's my advice, but you're not going to listen to me anyways. Everybody just appears tired. And that is a shame. Because this could have been so much better. This could have been so good. But, where are we? We're halfway through the final season of TNG, and at this point, everybody's checked out. They're looking ahead to the movie. I don't even know, is the movie being filmed at this point, or are they about to? What's going on? Because that might explain a lot. I don't know. That's pretty much all I'm going to say. I'm not going to say anything else about Planet Scotland. I'm going to leave that up to other people who are actually Scottish. So, because I don't feel it's my place to do that. So, keep up the good work. And actually, that's Purry's line. I shouldn't steal that from Purry. But do keep up the good work. And I do look forward to next time, because I believe the next TNG episode is Lower Decks. And I love Lower Decks. So hopefully if it is the next one, I will feedback then as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
They weren't filming Generations yet. They don't film it until after they film the whole of the 7th season. But it's certainly in development. And certainly some of the attention is clearly in that direction, I think it's fair to say.
The thing is, though, the whole idea, the whole script, the whole thing is so terrible. I can't blame any of the actors for not engaging with it. I just can't. It's so awful. And
I kind of see what you say about Patrick Stewart when he's been injured by the green energy thing. That's hard to be. That's not a great acting job there. But I do like his reaction stuff at the beginning of the story when Beverly's telling him about 30 Shades of Gran. And Marina Sirtis's reactions are fantastic in terms of shock, jaw-dropping. Yes. The rest of the time I think she's just trying her best not to look shocked. But So I don't completely agree with that side of things.
And also you talk about how Frakes didn't know what to do. With this script, can you blame him?
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose a better director could have elevated it.
Yes, I think that's fair to say.
And I can see that argument, definitely.
I mean, that's the thing with Frakes. When he's given good material, he can do good stuff. I mean, First Contact is obviously a very good example of what he can do given good material. The awful Thunderbirds film, on the other hand. So
did he direct Fish?
Yes, he did Insurrection as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say he can't make a...
He can't make a bad film good.
You can't make a silk purse out of a sow's ear, as the saying goes.
Is it right? Okay, fair enough. But I have to take issue with you when you say this could have been so good.
There's no way this script was going to turn out to be good. As some of the people behind the show realised quite quickly.
No. But,
the whole concept of Beverly falls for a ghost that was fucking her gran. I'm sorry, that's never going to work out well.
No, but the idea
you could have got the best director in the world. You could have got your Steven Spielbergs or your Ridley Scotts. There's no way they're saving this.
No, it doesn't matter who they are. No, but the idea it could have been better than it was. Yeah, I can see that potentially it could have been. Yes. And you can hear more of Mike on the Edge of Forever podcast, which is back now after hiatus, and you can find that on earth2.net.
Yippee. Okay. So we finish. We normally finish with Purry, of course, but this time we'll be finishing with Drew and Tracy. I can't wait to hear what Tracy made of this one, because of course she's a woman, so she's going to love it, according to Jerry Taylor.
She gets creeped out by graveyards.
Hiya, this is our feedback for Star Trek Next Generation episode Sub Rosa. Again.
Yep.
Terrible mock accents in this episode. What is it when the Americans think that you know, oh, they're doing a Scottish episode, they have to sound like this, and oh, you know, it's just ridiculous.
I know, it's awful. I'm
Terrible
sure Purry
acting.
will not be impressed with this.
I'm sure
I
he's
know,
going to be appalled.
Also, when he started saying, oh, I've got the caber toss, and that, I'm surprised he didn't say, oh, and that's just after the haggis, and I'm practicing on my bagpipes.
Well, I'm surprised he didn't go, okay, the news.
Oh, it's terrible.
Very
isn't it?
cliched, very wrong. So again, and we did talk about this during the episode, what is it that they've kind of gone back in time, and they've gone back to what looks like the bloody medieval era? Why can't they ever go back to a time when it's like 2025, and for us it's actually modern?
So for instance, they might go back to, like, you know, instead of like saying, oh, we want, like, we've transported this Scottish village from Edinburgh or wherever he said it was, and you know, we want to look like the 19th century or whatever. Perhaps like we should see a society where they're based on 1996 and all listen to the Spice Girls and stuff.
Quite possibly,
like
or
Oasis and Blur.
2015, everyone's on their iPhones.
Yeah,
you know?
they could do that.
That's
They could
what
do that as well.
do.
Yeah.
Ooh, so didn't this episode get a bit scary? And you never forewarned me.
I know. You know, I can remember this one obviously. And I knew that, you know, especially when we was watching Bev and the bit where the blanket gets pulled off and her nightie starts getting pulled off.
Woo, that was very reminiscent
like,
of like The Entity. It was getting a bit
I know you'd be pooing your pants over
yes,
that.
I was a bit like, what? Let's not have this. I don't do ghosts.
It was starting to turn into 50 Shades of Grey, and I'm not talking about the terrible episode.
Not quite, dear. But in fairness, just going back to that, she didn't seem too bothered when she was talking to Troy the next morning, was she?
No,
she was
she's
like
loving
explaining it. She was almost like, I cannot wait for bedtime tonight because I'm taking...
That's the most action she's had in ages.
I'm having my Horlicks to get a good night's sleep. I'm going out like a light. I am having this man again. So again, another weird old episode, right? You've got people from the planet Colders. Okay, that's what we're taking a guess at. Why do they look hog-like? Why?
It's only that priest guy, isn't it?
Yeah, but why? Even, you know, the costume designers, they know when they're putting this episode together, someone's got to think, actually, it looks like a pig. Let's not go there. But they don't.
Pigs in space! Yeah, I know, I did. I nicked that off you.
That was my joke, but you can have it.
Okay.
So when Ronan was kind of being absorbed into Bev, I did comment that he looked like a Vic Vapor Rub.
He was a greenie.
Yeah, and I just wondered if there was like a spell of eucalyptus like in the room.
I reckon so.
You know, I mean, she seemed to be enjoying herself, so whatever he had going on, it was working. But, you know, I don't know. I wonder if she had a bit of a sore chest.
I'm sure she did after that.
Yeah. And I knew Bev would see the sense in the end. You know, she's a very intelligent woman. Women can be blinded by a hottie totty. That's fair enough. Yeah, we do understand
that. A green
that.
Scottish 800-year-old
green vapor.
Vapor,
exactly. But she saw the sense in the end. We knew she'd come
when
round.
Picard was injured.
When she blasted. Oh, of course. As soon as she saw Picard was injured, she kind of saw a sense.
Changed her allegiances.
I love you, Picard. I can't leave you. This was a bit of a daft one for me. Not enough Riker. Because Riker's looking quite hot in these episodes.
He was only in it a bit, and Wolf.
Quite like it. Yeah, just not enough. You know, there's a lot of Troy wanted to kind of... I got the impression she wanted to kind of say, for fuck's sake, Bev, sort your life out. You're being a weirdo.
This is a notoriously bad episode, like of season 7.
Why do you never tell me this before you sit down and go?
Because you might not want to watch it.
I
tell you what, though, I didn't find it that bad.
It was alright.
It was no, I wouldn't go. It's alright. I wouldn't go that far. It wasn't good, but it wasn't as terrible as I was really thinking it was going to be.
It was alright.
It was crap, but it wasn't really crap.
Yeah, it's absolutely pissing down with rain, so it kind of kept us inside for like an hour. So I'm quite happy with that. It's alright.
Exactly.
Anyway, next one.
Okay.
Let's have it. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, Vic's Vapor Rub.
Yeah. Not down there, not down there.
Ouch, yes. Oh. I don't think she's got a sore chest. I think it's something else.
Yeah. Oh, boy. It's a good job she's the doctor, really, isn't it?
Wouldn't have to turn up the sick bay with that, would you?
No.
You put Vicks where? Okay. Well, they weren't quite as repulsed by it as we were, but clearly didn't enjoy it.
No.
Since there's no way to enjoy this. Oh my. Okay. Well, Thank you very much for that, guys, and thank you to everybody who's fed back today.
Thank you.
And a special thanks again to Purry for joining us this evening.
Yes, thank you.
So, we've already had a little hint dropped. We've got a good Next Generation episode to look forward to. We'll be recording on Wednesday the 5th of August. And we will indeed be covering Lower Decks, which is definitely one of the better episodes of Season 7.
See, I don't remember it. I only remember who's in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like totally wrong for my brain. Normally I remember the plot of an episode and I haven't got a fucking clue who's in anything. And then this time around I'm the other way round.
It's a strong one from what I remember.
I don't remember it at all. Apart
Good.
from it's got Ensign Sito in it.
Mm-hmm. And Deep Space Nine-wise, we'll be viewing the Armageddon game, which I think is a Bashir O'Brien episode. They're usually good.
Yeah.
But again, I can't remember an awful lot about how the plot actually pans out. So that'll be an interesting revisit as well.
Mm.
If you'd like to contact us with feedback, then all the details are at the credits on the end of this podcast. And also, all being well, many thanks to the legend that is Darren Diamond for being able to use the tune that you'll be listening to at the end of this podcast. And Darren Diamond can be found along with Darren Barnard and Lee Metcalf, Jim Moon and Elton McManus on the Black Dog podcast.
Yeah, and the song comes from the album Straight Outta Thailand.
Yes. Whilst we're on the subject of plugs, the Geek Planet Online magazine is currently available to Patreon subscribers, so if you've given some money towards keeping Geek Planet Online on the tracks, many thanks, and as a result you get to hear various podcasters in the magazine podcast, ourselves included. We're talking not Trek for a change, but we're talking about cartoons. And that'll be available to non-Patreon subscribers as well, with a few adverts thrown in a week or so's time, I think. Also, congratulations to Brandy and Dave on the Inside Outcast for reaching their 300th podcast.
Wow.
We haven't even done 100 yet, so that kind of puts us... Admittedly, they do pretty much podcast weekly. I think they do about 50 weeks of a year, so they do pretty damn well, dedicated podcasters that they are. And worth checking out podcast number 299 as well, because they're looking at Star Trek, the original series in that one. So well worth catching the Inside Outcast. It's a very random podcast, and the latest one, number 300, is looking at a particular sort of music, which I'd never come across before and can't remember the name of it. But that's just me being a complete ignorant fool when it comes to music. But there were some interesting tracks they were listening to, which I spaced out to quite nicely. Okay, we'll catch you next time, folks. Don't have nightmares about green ghosts.
Ooh, or granny fucking.
Cheery bye.
Bye. The bOrgCast is brought to you by the lovely people at GeekPlanetOnline.com.
All music referenced is for illustrative purposes only, and no copyright infringement is intended.
To contact us, you can use the forums at GeekPlanetOnline.com.
Visit our Tumblr site at bOrgCast.tumblr.com, where you'll find images accompanying the episodes discussed in this cast.
Send email messages or MP3s to bOrgCast@GeekPlanetOnline.com.
Or you can contact us via Twitter on rev_org or bOrgCastAmmo. Hashtag bOrgCast.
I kissed the Gran just to try it. That sexy geriatric. It is my sin, her wrinkled skin so loose I can't tell if I